There we go. Now we should be live.
All right, cool.
Get some music going. Right on.
I wasn't here last time, but sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. I think you said you had a long day at work or something, so yeah, don't worry. Don't even worry about it.
Um,
Just quickly announce that we're streaming. And we're back.
right.
Excuse me. Actually, to be honest with you, it was a bit of a long day for me. We were recording with one of the hosts we have for like this hunting show we do, and went a lot longer than I thought it was going to go.
Crap, you're on a hunting show?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you, but I work as a video editor for this hunting and fishing channel here in Canada, and one thing we do is these two live shows. One is actually live. The other one we tell people is live. We did the one we told people was live today, and it's all about the hunters that work with us and then that are hosts or guests on all of our shows. They go out and they hunt bears.
Wow.
Yeah, and all I can say is those people are crazy because I had to edit this one interview with a guy who had actually gotten mauled by a bear, and just seeing what happened to him and how his life was so different afterwards. It's just like, you guys are nuts. Why are you going after these things?
Nah, like I lived in rural New Jersey for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
you know there's like black bears and grizzly bears and whatnot there. Once while I was walking to school, because I used to do that, a bear cub like ran like literally a couple feet in front of me.
A
And
bear,
I just stood there for like a good 10 minutes perfectly still.
a bear cub, seriously?
Yeah, bear cub.
Oh my god, dude, you are lucky to be alive.
Yeah, no, that's why I stood completely still for like 10 minutes.
Those were good survival instincts.
Now, when you live in that area, you know, like they tell you, like, don't even try to approach a bear cub. Don't
No,
even move.
no. Yeah, actually, the guy I was just talking about, what happened to him is he was in the mountains just on his own hunting a wild sheep, and a bear cub had come out of the bush and just walked right in front of him, and he said he knew what was about to happen, so he was trying to find, the mama bear before she could find him, but he was too slow.
Mm. That's a good way to start this.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
um, so I see we got someone in the chat room right now.
all right on. Let's see who we got. Anthony Smith. Oh, did he maul back? You know what? Actually, funny you asked that. The guy fought the bear off and was trying to like get his bearings and everything like that, and then it came back for round 2, and he fought it off a second time.
Oh God.
I know. I could not believe this guy telling this story. Like, if I didn't see what the guy looked like, I wouldn't like believe him. And to his credit, like, he looks pretty good for having been attacked by a bear twice. Anyway, this is a weird topic. I don't know why I brought it up. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Sorry. Weird way to get this all started.
Anyways, all right. I don't know how to do this. How do we do this?
That's fine. I mean, like, we could just talk about whatever. Like, I have a few things we could discuss, like, things that got us interested in the project. What are some of our inspirations, things like that. What we do, because I think some people will be curious about that. And I mean, if anybody watching right now has any questions for us, we could answer that. But yeah, why don't we just start with like what drew us to the project? I mean, that's pretty easy for me. So I don't know, Kohi, Tim, if you guys want to start, or I can start. Doesn't matter to me.
I mean, either. Who wants to start?
Whoever wants to. I don't mind.
I think
Right.
I'll kick things off just to make things easy. So me, I'm like the story lead, which feels weird to say for a fan comic, but I guess it is appropriate. I don't want to say I come up with the whole story, because that's not true at all. I kind of came up with the basis and was fortunate enough to find other people that kind of vibed and connected with it, and I am, I don't know, I guess coordinating people around to bring this thing to life.
All right. Cool.
Awesome.
Kohi, sorry.
Oh, I said awesome. 'Cause that's awesome.
We're all too polite.
Yeah, no, I tend to have a problem where I accidentally talk over people, and I feel super self-conscious about that.
Oh, dude.
Same.
Yeah. When I worked as like a sort of co-host for the podcast type thing I used to work on, happens all the time. You learn not to like let it bother you too much. You just go, I'm sorry, or you just keep going, because like acknowledging it is almost worse, which sounds so weird but makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I guess I should. I guess I should go next, unless Kohi, you want to do it?
I think the floor is yours, man.
Okay. Well, Diggity, I basically joined this project because you asked, mostly. I've been lurking around the Archie Sonic Online Discord for a bit, posting stuff for my fanfic and stuff like that. Rediscovered Frontiers. I've always wanted to be like a writer, or to like join in a group project like this in a fan comic or something. So, like, when you asked, I thought it would be interesting. And you also invited me a while ago to try my hand out for a writer, but unfortunately, because like I was so busy with my other stuff, I couldn't be a writer. So an editor position you offered sounded like something up to my speed, and so far, I found it like really cool, like bouncing ideas off of you guys, offering my own suggestions to try and make something sound more in character or more dynamic, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm happy to be a part of this team.
I gotta be honest too. When I asked you, um, I did it because, well, of course I wanted you, but I totally expected you to just be like, "I'm sorry, man. I have a lot on my plate, and I can't really commit." But I was pleasantly surprised when you said, "Actually, I wouldn't mind. I can't do anything too heavy." And I'm glad we were able to work something out.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Like this is a lot more up to my speed. Like I can dedicate time to it, but not too much. I can focus on my own things, but also feel like I'm contributing something to this project.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We got a lot of like not just creative people, but like people that gel creatively, which as someone who has tried to do collaborative things like this many times, it is very hard to find, but it's so good when it happens.
Yeah, I think so too. Like if we kept butting heads, it wouldn't be fun. But since it's we get to go well together, we kind of make magic.
Mm-hmm. A little spoiler warning for everyone watching. The answer of "Well, I joined because Diggity asked me." That's gonna be pretty common. I think there's been three three people that audition of their own, I guess, volition, and we did turf one, unfortunately. But yeah, that happens, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I will say,
Yeah,
since
I remember.
oh sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead, Kohi.
Okay. Um, I was going to bring up that when you had asked me to join, um, I wasn't like I was I've never been asked to join a comic before, so it was cool that someone had reached out because I've never been in a team project. Ah, sorry, accidentally. um, but I didn't realize how developed and how many members there were until I actually joined. I was like, well, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was. So, and it's come so far too,
Yeah, it
which
has
is so
come.
cool.
It's come a lot farther than even I initially expected. And being
Yeah,
completely
it's
sorry.
the lag.
Yeah, the lag is
I think
fine.
it's the lag's fault.
You're probably right. Not only has like it come a long ways, but like the quality we're achieving um is pretty impressive for me. Just because like Kohi, you mentioned like you never worked on a collaborative project before. I'm kind of in the same boat. I know how to work with people, but something on this scale is definitely a first for me. So I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah, I'd always
Yeah,
kind of drawn things on my own, so it was cool to like start collaborating with people so they can put their ideas in it and
Mm-hmm.
like stuff like that. Yeah.
I keep hearing.
yeah, like I was just gonna say, I was also kind of like impressed like about the team that was built up. Well, you actually like invited me on the server a while ago, but I wasn't exactly checking it out because I kind of felt guilty about turning you down as a writer like before. But when you invited me as an editor, I decided to jump into the team and check out the Discord. And I was actually very impressed with the team you put together.
Oh, well, thank you. there's so many times where I have to kind of like mentally pinch myself because we have, people like you guys who bring a lot, and also folks like Churro and Ruby and FA too, fan artist, just so we're not talking completely in jargon. But in Snow, my God, I really can't believe we got Snow sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see him. Like I've kind of seen his work on the Archie Sonic Online Discord, but I didn't know he was part of your team until like I saw him.
Yeah, like for a while he was kind of the open secret was that he was our secret weapon, and he was the one kind of elevating the project and the quality to the place it's at. But honestly, since Kohi joined, and then we got people like Kayla and Roach, or Lord Canty, sorry. Yeah, it's just been a group effort that has it's really just been able to do it on its own, which is the most impressive thing to me.
Yippee.
Yeah, Cody, go ahead. I did you speak before, like to introduce yourself and everything?
For some reason, I am not able to understand what you said.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, did you do you want to like introduce yourself and everything?
Oh, sure. Uh, First, I like draw stuff, and and I started digital art. Wait, am I doing like an introduction of like how I got into art, or like just a general?
It's whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Okay. Yeah, I started digital art like 4 years ago, about almost. And before that, I had always kind of just done stuff traditionally, and um lots of paper comics. Um I've always really liked Sonic, so that was something I drew a lot, and then I started playing some fan games and ended up wanting to make my own characters and kind of went from there. The
Yes.
dream of making a sorry.
I
I
was just
used to
gonna say,
dream to make
yes, the
a
usual. Oh.
yeah. I originally wanted Silver was like always my favorite character. So I really wanted him to have his own game, and I was like dreaming like, oh, I'm so gonna make him a game someday. It's gonna be so cool. And it was my best friend's favorite character too. And so we were coming up with all these ideas and coming up with a story for fan Silver video game, and then we eventually made our own characters, and they kind of took over.
That's how it goes. I found with a lot
Yeah.
of like people who eventually become original creators, like they latch onto something they enjoyed as like a kid, and they figure out like what does and doesn't work for it. But then they decide, well, I want to decide what works and doesn't work for me, so I'm not so constrained.
Yeah. Oh, that was a horrible voice crack. My bad.
You're good.
None of us are professionals or have a professional setup here. Don't worry.
Yeah. Miravox says Tim sent me. Oh, thanks for sending him.
Yeah, I was surprised too. Thanks for coming over by my request.
Freedom Planet. Man, I wish I loved something as much as I almost called him by his name. Starlight Alchemist loves Freedom Planet. Although Zelda debatably is that for me. So is this a Q&A? It can be. If you want to ask us questions, you can go ahead. We're obviously not going to give away spoilers to the story, but if you want to know about like the things that inspire the comic or how we're approaching the comic, then yeah, we would be down to answer some of those kinds of questions.
Cool. What should we talk about next then?
Well, it's funny. I just mentioned like how we're approaching the comic, and I wouldn't mind talking about that because, I mean, what creator doesn't like talking about themselves, right?
Yeah, sounds good. Since you're basically the mastermind behind all this, maybe you should start.
I appreciate that. It's just so funny to think of like me being the mastermind behind anything. Anyway, yeah, the approach I have in mind for the story is basically like understanding the essence of not just like Sonic, but like all the characters and the elements that we're going to be introducing in the book, and taking them in a new direction, but not so new that it feels alien, like it feels unlike the character and they're just there in name and body. So I mean, we're looking at Antoine right now. Like, yeah, Antoine is still going to be a little bit of a coward in Blue Streak, but that's not going to be necessarily his defining trait. It's going to be other things like his pride, his sense of duty, things like that. And that's really what we're doing with all the characters, including people like Sonic, Sally, and other characters that we haven't mentioned that we're going to be using, but I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler in itself. We're not just going to give focus or love to the Archie Freedom Fighters. We have plans for a lot of different characters from different interpretations of Sonic.
Yeah, and that's a good approach to it. I I hate to bring up my silly little fanfic again, but I always found like as an exercise, you should try and strive to make the characters true to themselves in a way
Absolutely.
that's recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
But and you can explore new ground with them, but it needs to be new ground that kind of makes sense for the trajectory of where characters are.
Absolutely. Like, people talk about One Piece a lot in that, like, they know what kind of storylines the characters will have, but they don't know what the details of those stories will be. Like, everyone knows, like, Zoro, for example, will have a pretty fight-focused one, and Sanji will probably do, like, some espionage-type stuff. That's kind of like what I want to shoot for, with the caveat, of course, being like, I do not think it will be as well done as One Piece, of course.
Oh yeah, no, we're not masters of the craft here, but we're trying to get there.
Yeah.
Trying to get there.
Come on now, Tim, your fanfic is not silly. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Mira, because I was going to say that too. No, man, Rediscovered Frontiers, even though I've only just started reading it, it is very well done.
Well, thanks for the vote of confidence.
Absolutely.
But like when it comes to like my editing and my suggestion, like I don't like to I don't want to seem like I'm trying to brag or anything like that, but I've tried I've read a lot of comics basically,
Yeah.
like a whole ton of them. So I tried to like make little suggestions about like paneling and stuff like that like try to experiment the medium without, or try to like really delve into the medium without like overtaxing our artists, because I know a lot of them like are not exactly like. I don't want to say that they're not masters, but I don't want to like overtax them basically.
I know what you
So
mean.
I want, yeah, yeah. Like I don't want to insult anyone or anything like that. I just I try to keep in mind like what people might be capable of and what we can actually do.
For sure.
Like I've made more than a few suggestions of why are we having like characters stating out loud or having thought panels, like explain stuff when we can just have the art speak for itself, and people can like have an idea of what's going through a character's head just by their expression or by their action.
Yeah, that's actually been a big help for me too, because like my background is very heavily short story novels, screenplay based. So I'm used to like almost spelling it out for people what's going on, and relying more on the visual aspect of things, like expressions or body language to sell the thoughts and feelings. That's definitely an area I'm not as strong in, but it is having someone like you who comes from comics more and reads more comics and things like that has been a big excuse me, big help.
Yeah. That's kind of why I was sharing like a lot. I don't know, Kohi, if you saw this, but I was sharing like Scott McCloud's books on making comics, and also like suggesting people to read Watchmen because it shows like a lot of tricks that can help us out and make us stand out and grow. You know.
Mhm.
I don't know if I saw that. I don't. I mostly. I read some comics. I have a few, but I don't read a whole lot because I'm usually doing this kind of stuff, drawing and acting or whatever. But it sounds cool. Comic books are so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my background for like visual literature is more like manga, and a few people have told me that that's a different beast from comic books, especially Western comic books.
It's definitely like a
Yeah.
different feel. Yeah. Oh, Kohi, do you want to finish or?
I think she was just agreeing with you.
Oh, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Oh. But no, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's a different feel. If you're more trained to like, not to harp on the Sonic comics, but if you only read Sonic comics, like, there are totally different beasts of how they handle like tone and how to handle like thought and everything like that. Like, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but I shared a couple of panels from the like I think it was Ultimate X-Men 2, the new one.
Yeah.
Where like where it shows like Hisako like laying down, closing her eyes to like sell her emotion, and then she wakes up kind of like somewhere else. That like handling transition, handling tone, that kind of thing. It's definitely like reading a lot of manga can certainly help you like convey emotion. Well, Western comics kind of like sell you on like big action, big bombastic like personalities, that kind of thing.
Right.
And they also show you tricks that aren't usually shown in manga, like using onomatopoeias to like convey like something like in the new Transformers comic where it like one of the onomatopoeias basically says you know the song because they like anyone because that song specifically you got the touch plays in your head like right away.
I love that. That's so meta.
Yeah, those comics are very good, by the way.
Actually, now that we're talking about this, I do remember when I was in school, they did actually have us briefly study like comic books and visual medium as a way to teach us the fundamentals of like show don't tell. And one the I remember the prof we had giving the course. He said that one approach you could have is treating the panels as not so much the sequence of the story. It's more like the checkpoints for you to go by, so you have something to reference, and then allow the reader to build the story in their head.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Like even Alan Moore, like basically said, comics like are best if you treat them like movies that don't move.
Yeah. Another one I heard a while ago that I don't know if I agree with anymore, but is probably at least worthwhile for the conversation, is that each panel is supposed to be like a snapshot of the most interesting thing, excuse me, interesting thing happening in the scene.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense too.
Yeah, it does make sense, but
Um,
then you get into like the whole thing of like in comic books, it takes one panel for the world to blow up, but three to blink.
yeah, it's basically training yourself how to convey like the information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like sometimes you feel like that information can be conveyed in three panels, but at the same time, like maybe like people will get the idea if you just use two.
Yeah, that's easily been the biggest learning curve for me, is how to uh, be efficient with the conveyance of information. I'm being very verbose this stream, and I don't know why.
I think we all got something to prove. Well, we got people watching.
Maybe.
Um, but one of my getting back to the actual comic, like as an editor, like one of the things I've been trying to do is try to see like what words would fit the character more.
Yeah, like developing the
Like
voices.
yeah, like you got to actually think how would Sonic or Sally actually talk in this kind of situation. Like if like Sonic can like be wordy, but like honestly, he doesn't do that often. So like
Mm-hmm.
you gotta understand he's a kid with attitude. So gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's been really fun to kind of learn how to do that, because like me, I've watched so much Sonic stuff over the years, whether it's games or comics or just TV shows. Like I just know how he talks, so it's easy for me to write for him. Versus someone like Rotor or Antoine, it takes a bit more, but at the same time, it is more rewarding, because when you are able to nail like a line that you look at and you say like, oh yeah, that's definitely an Antoine line, or that's a Rotor line. It's such an awesome feeling.
Yeah. Oh, I still can't figure out how the heck to do his accent in like written format. Like
It's hard.
Antoine.
The accent is hard, but it's also like, because you almost have to write in intentionally broken English, but also not so broken that it's like indecipherable.
Yeah. Makes your inner linguist cry.
Yes. You mean to tell me you can't just write Sonic by loading it up with 90s tude? Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. Like, our Sonic definitely has a lot of the 90s tude, but he is not just that. There's a lot more to him than initially meets the eye. Oh, hi, Jet.
Oh. Yeah, I see it. We got some more people on the chat here.
Anyway, you were going to say something before I answered Mira's question.
And it was going to be a joke about they're like robots in disguise, but now I kind of regret it.
I've been on the lookout for those Transformers comics you recommended me. They're high up on my list.
Bro, Transformers are awesome.
Yes. Oh, I love Transformers so much.
But you should really check out the Skybound. I was going to say you should check out the Skybound comics when you get the chance. They are fantastic.
Yeah, when you, I think it was in the Archie Sonic Online server, when you shared that first panel of like Optimus's introduction to Earth, I knew it was like, okay, I gotta find a way to read these because that's an interaction that was waiting to happen, but nobody had done it.
Yeah. Though my first experience with Transformers was actually through, it was either Prime or Animated. I was a little kid then. I was never really into that.
Prime. Prime was really good.
It was the second Bayverse movie, I think, where I just thought, this is stupid, and I stopped watching them.
That's totally fair, because the first Michael Bay Transformers was not bad.
Yeah, no, that one wasn't bad.
Yeah, but everything after that was very definitely of its time and for 12-year-old boys and nobody else. Also, I got in around Armada. That's when I hopped in as well. The original Unicron trilogy, when it was more of like an anime. That was good times. Although I did also watch Robots in the Skies initially, which was okay. Armada was way better.
Armada, that was probably the one I actually watched because I remember it kind of looking anime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Armada was.
I remember.
Sorry, Kohi, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that I remember watching the In Disguise as well.
Yeah, it was funny. I watched Beast Wars before Transformers, and I had no idea they were related because I was 6 and I didn't have that critical of thinking skills. But I remember it being so weird that Optimus and Megatron sounded the same, but they looked totally different. My brain just couldn't compute that for some reason.
Let's see that. All right. So, wow, we talked a lot about Transformers here.
Yeah. The Transformers is just awesome. Like, even some of the recent movies, when they decide to get people who actually care about the property, like the first 5 minutes of Bumblebee really is a masterclass in how to visually convey information in film. If you take away the fact that it's Transformers, it's actually incredible.
Yeah, those marketing people back in the 80s, or was it 90s? Yeah, 80s. They knew what they were getting. They knew like the vein they were tapping with that.
Oh yeah.
I still find it though it kind of bit them in the butt, like in the end, because they killed off Prime and all those Transformers, and they didn't know how that would affect the kids because they just saw them as products.
It's funny you say that. My uncle is a massive Transformers fan, like from the 80s, so he's like OG, and he still today talks about how that movie like hit him so hard as a kid and like moved him because of Optimus dying.
The movie itself isn't great, but man, that soundtrack and those scenes are kind of cool.
You know, I have yet to actually see the original 80s movie. I know that's when they introduced Unicron, so I want to. It's just, it's one of those things that only comes to mind when I'm in the middle of something, and then when I would have time, I'm doing something else where it doesn't spring to mind.
I get that.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts on the upcoming animated movie? It looks like it's more for kids, which is fine. I mean, Transformers shouldn't just be for adults like us. But, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would rather it be more in line with something like what Bumblebee was doing.
Plus, Transformers is, in the end of the day, for kids. They can have their thing while I enjoy, like, the Energon Universe comics.
And that's a great point. Like, I think that needs to be a bigger conversation when it comes to media consumption. Like, things like there's nothing wrong with you being like in your 30s and still enjoying cartoons or the things you enjoyed when you were a kid, but you do need to reckon with the fact that it is for kids.
Yeah, like some people can't really gel with that. That's kind of why you got like a ton of fanboys freaking out over like someone like disrespecting the lore or whatever. And then you get into like some of the Sonic fandom.
Yeah.
Let's not open that can of worms.
That wasn't for the Sonic fan. That was more like, ooh, this feels a little close to home.
Yeah. But anyways, but no, that's like just to bring things back. That's kind of like also how I handle like stories of characters. Like you like since we are kind of like not doing this just for kids, we can try and delve into more serious topics and stuff like that. But like we still gotta like keep it like not like light kind of, as in like not super super dark or serious. Because come on, this is Sonic.
Yeah, like I'm interested in more serious themes with the project, but not to the point like it becomes like something like friggin' Darren Aronofsky would make. Like at the end of the day, you should. Oh, whoops! I forgot about that. Anyway, yeah, it needs to be fun. Like it needs to engage something in your brain where it's like it's escapism. Really, is how I look at it.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. Like, you can talk about serious stuff, you can engage with serious stuff, but like you always have to keep in the back of your head, this is a Sonic comic, so.
Absolutely, and like, and this is kind of touching on why I disengaged with Sonic for so many years. Make it fun and make it lighthearted and make it escapist, sure. But I think there's also something to be said about media respecting itself and not just saying, hey, it's a really fast hedgehog. Isn't that dumb?
Oh yeah, no, there's always like a fine line when it comes to self-deprecation.
Yeah, like the whole 2010s up until the release of Frontiers, where like it seemed like the franchise was trying to be in on the joke. That was just kind of lame, in my opinion.
They ran it to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And like, Boom, the show was actually pretty good. I thought it had a good balance there of like having a little bit of fun with itself, but also not like looking itself in the mirror and being like, you are such a loser. Because that was my big problem with the games. Because it's like, okay, you're telling me this thing is dumb. I like this thing, so you're calling me dumb? That's not really cool.
No. Like I kind of disengaged with Sonic. Like I think around the Unleashed era. Like maybe.
Yeah, me
Like I
too.
remember yeah, like I remember I was like into it like around Heroes, but then I disengaged uh Universe. I know not Universe. Unleashed. There's too many U stuff. Uh, yeah. But like when I re-entered the fandom like around COVID, uh like I kind of like took a look at some of the cutscenes and I was like, this is so lame with like some of the Lost World stuff. Not so much colors because I feel like at that time like you kind of needed to dial back the seriousness of everything.
Yeah,
Like I mentioned, there's like a fine line between being like you had to like be serious, but at the same time like this is Sonic, you should have fun. I feel like having a game or two like in between serious entries is a good idea. Like just have it like being Sonic and Tails like stopping Eggman on some stupid thing for like an adventure. But then you got the Lost World where they overdid it.
yeah. Even Generations, I think, was the beginning of that, where like the whole plot was, oh, it's Sonic's birthday, but then the time eater that has no reason to shows up, and it's like, okay, I'll see where you're going with this, but yeah. Also, just because it's for kids does not excuse it being bad. You got to put effort in. ATLA and the Lego Movie are prominent examples. Yeah, that is a great point. There's something to be
Yeah.
said about more disposable media. Actually, no, I don't like using that term. More like, what was the term you used, Tim? I think it was a while
Uh,
ago.
Shoot. Was it? Like I don't even remember half of the stuff I said.
Oh, I remember now. It was it's popcorn stuff. Like it's something that's like enjoyable to consume, but there's not a lot of substance. But you have a little bit, and that's okay. So it's it's not bad for you. Whereas something like
Yeah,
if you,
like
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, yeah, like colors, like that was fine.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind colors and it being more lighthearted and like it focusing more on just Sonic and Tails. Like one thing I do think has some validity to it when people talk about like the adventure era and the mid 2000s for Sonic is that there was just way too many like characters being introduced all at once that it was like, okay, so is this Sonic's game or is this like, I mean, Blaze isn't a good example of this argument because she actually is a good character, but like the Babylon
Apparently it's
Rogues and everything like that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I like the large cast of Sonic, but like they don't you really use them. Like when it feels like it would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like like and like that's kind of why like people were so like turned off by Silver because they were like, you already have Shadow. What's the point of this? So that's kind of like where the whole use Sonic and his useless friends thing came about.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I think Silver's big problem, not just with '06 being in the state
Terrible.
it was, it is kind of terrible. Although I would disagree. PO6 proves that there was something pretty special going on with '06. It was just like the time constraints and everything. But with Silver, I think the thing with him was like he really was just Trunks but Sonic, whereas like the all the comparisons Sonic gets from Dragon Ball, people say Sonic and Tails' relationship was inspired by Piccolo and Gohan's, and it's like, okay, I can see like the foundations for that, but when you start getting into like the um, the finer points, it definitely has more of its own identity. Same with Shadow being like the doppelganger of Sonic. Like again, the foundation is there, but it becomes its own thing. Silver really was. It's just Trunks without the sword.
That would have at least made it cooler.
Yeah, it would have. We're doing a lot of the talking, Kohi. Sorry, we don't need to be excluding you if that's what we're doing.
Oh no, I'm just grinding.
You are doing a really good job, I gotta say.
Oh, thank you.
I love Antoine. I love Antoine. Anton.
Me too. He's a great character.
Look at Tails. Look at how happy he is.
I gotta say,
Yep.
the direction we've settled on for Tails is something I'm enjoying a lot more than I thought I would.
Makes sense. Like, he's the little kid character. You get to watch him grow. He's the most dynamic.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing. Like, if you're gonna write Sonic, you gotta like at least understand how to write like teenagers and kids. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I once had this conversation with someone where I just straight up like they were doing an Omaki or however you pronounce that, rediscovered frontiers, and they kind of went like in a totally different direction thing. And I told them like the first rule of being a good writer is basically thinking to yourself, would someone actually talk like this?
Yes.
Yeah, and then like I kind of went into details, and then you got to think, would a teenager actually talk like this? Like I may be an old man now, but I still remember how I talked as a teenager.
You're only a few months older than me. Don't be saying you're an old man.
No, and I'm glad that you got that down as well.
It is fun. Like, as much as we were joking about it earlier, like, at least with this, at this point in the story, Sonic is like at least 80% quips and one-liners and zingers. So like, as long as you can think of a funny way to like burn someone or razz them up, like you're probably pretty set on your Sonic writing. It's when we get into the more serious stuff that it's going to be, I think for me at least, more of a challenge to write him while still staying true to his personality and characterization.
I think it's kind of easy to get that down, like personally, because like you got to think, he's a punk that doesn't. He's a little punk, like he's a little wise guy. He'll have a quip or two for like anybody, like even his friends. But when it comes to being emotionally vulnerable or like stuff like that, he's not gonna wanna like open up unless like he's at the end of his rope.
That's true.
Or alone. That's kind of how I even saw like the game or IDW like Sonic, because you always have those like little beats, like whenever he's alone, or like he's looking to the side where you can tell like he's feeling some stuff, but he's not the kind of person that shares his emotion.
Yeah. That is one thing I actually really like about the Fleetway interpretation of Sonic, is that it shines more of a light on the fact that he's like a kid that I don't think really any of the other Sonic interpretations really hit on. Like the fact that he's so young and he's trying to, one, be cool all the time, but also he recognizes the fact that people rely on him and look up to him. So he's like in this weird spot where he's like, I gotta maintain the image. That's one thing I really like.
Yeah, like a lot of his interactions with Amy there, like you can instantly see that he's kind of still in that whole "girl will cramp my style" kind of phase.
Yeah.
It's a very immature, like kid idea of what being cool is, and then you see him like grow into someone who is actually cool.
Yeah. Does that mean we should start making Bleach comparisons? Well, it would help if I had ever read or watched Bleach.
Bleach has kind of a weird place in my heart because it was very cool when it started. It had like a style and an edge to it. Like Ichigo actually felt like an actual teenager.
Oh yeah.
Like it wasn't exactly like he wasn't like Naruto or Luffy where he was like a very like I don't want to say Goku light, but he was basically like he wasn't exactly Goku adjacent aside from the hair. Like he was surly, he had his friends, but he was like always like, I'm too cool for this. But
Okay.
then like but when he was like alone or with someone he cares about, he does show like his softer side.
Oh,
Or
interesting.
with a ghost because he knows the ghost won't say anything.
Yeah.
But then it kind of became Bleach, and I kind of fell off.
Yeah, I really don't know a lot about Bleach beyond the fact that it was one of Johnny Young Bosch's early anime roles, and I think one of his more celebrated ones. That tells you what my interests are in anime. But I did hear a lot of people talk about how like it was a bit more true to life with like how it wrote its characters. Like you're talking about Ichigo just now, as opposed to someone like Naruto, where he's been treated like garbage most of his life, and he still maintains this positive attitude. It's like, no, someone probably would not be quite so idealistic.
Oh yeah, no, Ichigo was a teenager also because he had like a loving family, but he was always like because like his dad like cracked his style. He was like, Dad, God, like it was very comical, but it felt like very real. Like when you're at that age, like public displays of like familial love is like uncool.
Right. But will you give Shadow a gun? I mean, I guess we can't really have a real Sonic adaptation without including Shadow, so no point in pretending like he's not going to be in the comic. What I will say about Shadow and a gun is I have a lot of interest in making the ideas that were presented in Shadow the Hedgehog work, but more in line of like making them like feel like an actual Sonic thing, because Shadow's just a weird game. It tries way too hard to be cool and edgy without really doing anything to earn it.
It was a very Japanese idea of what cool is, but like also trying to still keep it kid friendly.
Yeah.
It was like a Japanese, edgy and cool, but also kind of toning it down without going all the way.
Yeah, it was a real mishmash of trying to be grown up, but thinking like, oh, but a lot of 12-year-olds play our game, huh? How do we do this? Yeah, I know that kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's also what tripped them up with forces too.
Yeah. Even forces, like there's just so many baffling decisions. Actually, no, not even baffling, just bad ones. Like everyone talks about Infinite like, oh, I'm weak, I'm not weak, which I mean, I guess could work as like a nice Saturday morning cartoon type villain, but there's just so many things that don't make sense with the character.
I personally do not have a problem with him being like having like him be like that narcissistic and self-obsessed where he's like downright psychotic. But like I think it's the tone and like how it's handled because they don't treat him like a raging lunatic and ultimately pathetic. Like Eggman's betrayal, like it just happens. Like it doesn't feel like Eggman was just humoring the guy. That
Yeah.
kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, I don't know much about forces. A lot of what I know is like from people who were still involved in the fandom at that point, because I was out of it until like 2 years ago. Yeah, it just sounds a lot like Sega or whoever was in charge of the creative things at the time. It was just like, all right, we're gonna throw whatever works at the wall, and that's what happened. And instead
Yeah,
of
like you can tell.
sorry,
I was gonna say like that whole thing with classic Sonic, like that was only there because Generations and we made him a lot of money.
And didn't that also lead to like the whole like, oh, modern Sonic and classic Sonic are two distinct timelines or something like that? Because I've never understood that part of like the contention.
I think like it was like it was eventually revealed in quotes that it was a mistranslation. But
Oh,
knowing Sega, they probably did try to go with the whole two worlds idea thing, only to find out that no one was buying it. So just to save face, they said it was a mistranslation.
I mean, at least at that point, I can say, well, at least you had a creative solution for your blunder.
And now they're just pretending it never happened.
Yeah, what are you talking about? The Shadow Rifle was cool, ergonomic nightmare, but still cool. Yeah. Man, this is making me think of, ironically, how cool my brother thought the Shadow game was, because for the sole reason that Shadow had a gun.
I mean, yeah, that's usually how it goes for young kids.
Yeah. Knowing how he's like now, I know if I tried to tease him about that, he would probably beat the life out of me.
No, but like personally, I just like how in Archie Sonic, like how he has that bike just because he likes it. I now just kind of headcanon him as like using guns because he just thinks they look cool.
Oh, totally.
He has a collection.
Yeah. Omega, am I a joke to you?
Nah, Omega, like Shadow considers Omega part of his collection.
Oh my god, I love that idea.
Okay, so what topic should we talk about next?
I mean, one thing I like talking about with other creatives is like talk about the things that inspire you, not just for like the project, but like really anything at all.
Oh wow. You want to start about that?
Yeah, sure, why not? I'll get the ball rolling. I mean, like, I make it no secret that I'm a big fan of the early 2000s cartoons. Like, I grew up on things like X-Men Evolution, and really mid-90s cartoons like the Spider-Man show, the X-Men animated series, a lot of DCAU stuff. But a lot of, like, the writing sensibilities I developed where I realized it was more powerful to make things character driven as opposed to strictly plot driven. A lot of it did come from Archie Sonic and Ian Flynn's run, and that's kind of where I got my start as someone who enjoys character driven narratives and things like that. But Full Metal Alchemist is another one that I developed a real love for later on in life, because it was just such a great mix of those character driven moments I was talking about, but also like knowing when to slow the story down and talk about like what our hopes and dreams are, and when to say, okay, we're not going to bother with that. We're just going to have people punching each other for 14 pages. And also like, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say, Full Metal Alchemist is cool.
Oh yeah, like the action and the character writing are great too, but also like the themes of the story, and like learning how something like the magic system in FMA alchemy, where even though it's called Full Metal Alchemist, the story really is not about alchemy. Alchemy is just the engine from which the story is told, and learning how to do that and draw a lot of different themes and different perspectives on the themes from something like that. That was a really big influence on me as a teenager. I guess I also can't talk about love for writing without mentioning like Harry Potter was a massive inspiration on me, and just because unfortunately you can't mention Harry Potter without addressing J.K. Rowling anymore. I mean, she made me want to be a writer, but I have zero sympathy for her as a person, especially in the last few years because of well, frankly, just how awful she is now. But another really big author is like Kenneth Opel. He's a Canadian writer who I don't think ever got the due diligence he deserved. He's written many amazing books that I think all ages can enjoy. The Silverwing books, which are basically Watership Down with bats, and the Matt Cruz series, which is like alternate history and mixes steampunk and blimps and this whole like fantastic ecosystem that exists in the sky. Like, if you ever want to get an idea of how to write fantasy but in the real world and make it like decently believable, you should check out the Matt Cruz books, and that's Airborne, Skybreaker, and Star Climber.
Okay, cool.
Paolini too actually inspired a pretty early love for fantasy before I realized how derivative he was in the beginning. He's gotten a lot better though.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I've been really wanting to check out his sci-fi book. I just can't find it for the life of me.
I guess I should start.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So, like, as a kid, I kind of like devoured. It definitely wasn't Harry Potter. Actually, Harry Potter kind of like bored me to tears. Yeah. I consumed a lot of Lemony Snicket books, though. A series of unfortunate events.
Oh yeah.
And I guess those kind of like really like gave me an appetite for reading. Like, I used to read like through recess and everything, just consuming books. Then I kind of got into comic books. Actually, that's kind of like around like 8 or so, I think. That's where I got like my first Archie Sonic book. I think it was like the first issue when Sonic got back from space. But like, as a normal reaction, it was like, wait, I only knew like Sonic from like Heroes and Adventure 2. I was like, who the hell is this? This rabbit girl. Who the hell is that? Like, why do I care about like her romance with this. I didn't have this dog dude. It was Antoine. I didn't know he was Coyote. So I didn't like it. Was definitely not the right time to get into Archie Sonic.
Right.
Um, but I read comics, mostly superhero comics. Crisis on Infinite Earths was like the first real comic that kind of blew my mind. Um, and you can kind of see its influence on me later in Rediscovered Frontiers. And then I got into anime, but funny you mentioned Full Metal Alchemist. When I used to be into like Naruto and stuff like that, but then I kind of got bored with it because it felt, I don't know, like there wasn't really any real meat to it. Like, why the hell was Naruto trying to save this Sasuke guy who seemed like kind of a jerk?
Right.
Yeah. But then I got into Full Metal Alchemist, and I was like, wow, this is very cool because like it was dealing with serious topics. Everyone felt more real to me, kind of, even if like they were like exaggerated. Ed, for example, like no one would want to hang out with him. He's kind of a little jerk. Um, but it kind of opened my eyes to the kind of stories that you can tell, the kind of stories I like, and it kind of led me to like reading more like complicated books, like my love for Stephen King,
Mhm.
who kind of influenced my like how I handle drama and my love for horror. Um, for example, like Salem's Lot was like is my favorite Stephen King book. Like I'm not even going to deny that. Um, so anyway, to speed things along, like I was bored out of my mind during COVID, so I decided to like check out the IDW Sonic comics after Comic Drake's video on them,
Mhm.
and that I had read through them, and then I watched that video about Ken Petters by Comic Drake also, and so I decided I might as well check out Archie Sonic, and that's how I kind of got to obsessed with Archie Sonic. And because I was an avid like fanfic reader, I was like, oh, are there any stories that basically like mix and match the two together? Like, and then like I check it out, and yeah, there wasn't much. Like there was this one, but it wasn't very good. Where it kind of like delved into the topic of like IDW being the post Genesis wave continuation of Archie Sonic, but it wasn't very good. And like I kind of decided to try and do it myself, like something I would actually read. And I pulled from like a bunch of different sources. Like one was a previous idea of like doing like a frontiers retelling, but with like Mecha Sally, but it's Sally in control, like waking up on the island. And this was back when we thought like the plot of Frontiers was going to be Sonic having amnesia or something like that.
Right.
It was like it was in one of the trailers, I think. Um, then I kind of decided that would be boring. Like I wouldn't want to read that. And then I kind of like really thought about like stuff that I liked, like Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol with how with how they handled Robot Man, and like his struggle with like dealing with a body that can't feel or that he can't eat, he can't sleep or anything like that.
Right.
And Crisis on Infinite Earths, which again, like it's a comic that I love. And I think more people should read because it kind of encapsulates how you can do a premise like that, a multiversal story, right? Like other than Into the Spider Verse, which was another inspiration of mine. Because when I saw that movie in theaters, it blew my mind in terms of the art and everything.
Oh yeah, Spider Verse is incredible.
Um, and
Isn't that what like? Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
oh no,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say, isn't that like when new era like of animation started? Like when they started to use like 2 frames per second instead of one. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
isn't that where that started? I think
and
so too, because I don't remember it before that.
more experiments with the art style, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, where they kind of like bring things back to like the sort of grimy graffiti, original Mirage Comics inspired art,
Yeah.
or Puss in Boots, where it's more like a painting.
I still need to
Like
watch Puss in Boots. I've heard so many good things about it.
it is a very good movie.
It was pretty good.
Um, but yeah, like I kind of pull my inspiration stuff I like Chainsaw Man is like I've been like its biggest cheerleader on the sock forums.
Yes, you have.
Yeah. It kind of like delves into my more sort of like anarchistic, like chaotic sensibilities, especially like for its love of like movie inspirations. I go to the movies a lot, so like you see like all the bits and pieces of stuff I love, like in Rediscovered Frontiers, and I try to take lessons from that and apply it to like my writing, and also like how I sort of like convey ideas to the rest of the team here. I can't really say exactly what I like inspired without spoiling anything, so I'm not going to say anymore.
Yeah, I was about to get into certain things, like, and then I had to stop myself because, like, oh wait, that would probably lead people to understand what we have in store.
Yeah. Thankfully, my ideas are like so far off that they're not going to affect any plans, like in the short term.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, like with this first arc we have, I'm really happy with it. Um, but some of the ideas we're coming up with for down the line and for the next major um, story arc that will come after this, I'm almost looking forward to it more.
Yeah, I get that. Like, the first story arc is kind of like getting all getting everyone into groove, kind of like knowing how like Sonic and the cast are going to act, what's the tone we're going for, what some of the stuff we're going to like try to touch on. Um, yeah, like, and then we gotta like learn as we go. It's after the first, it's after the first arc that we like really hit our stride. But this one, what I've seen so far is like very good.
I'm glad you think so because there's been a few times where I'm like, is this really what we should be doing, or should we like adjust course? But that gives me some confidence at least.
Yeah, like this project is starting. It's gonna be a bit rough. Like there's no denying that. But I still think it's very good.
I appreciate that, man.
Like especially like I'm not even like you guys like I'm not really that involved as an editor until like issue 3, I think. That was like the first one I edited, I think.
I think so, yeah. I think you had like a few notes on issue 2, you and McMissile. But yeah, issue 3 is definitely where I would say like you put your stamp.
Yeah, but that's mostly because issues 1 and 2 were kind of mostly done anyways.
Yeah. Speaking of, I was of the opinion that issue 3 was our strongest script yet. This is kind of getting into internal team talk, so sorry guys for you watching. We're getting into this kind of stuff. But I gotta be honest, after at least reading this first draft Solaris had for issue 8, that's pretty good too. Especially with how he was able to handle so much going on, because that was a real concern for even myself.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like handling big casts is always difficult. Like I even found like where I found like arcs that were supposed to be short in my story ended up longer than they should have because I have to deal with everyone,
Yeah,
and I don't have the benefit of a visual medium to help me out.
I will say though, with this being just a comic as opposed to something like just another fan fiction, um, it does allow for certain things to be a lot easier because, like, with prose, you're always wondering like what should and shouldn't be there versus like a visual thing where you can rely on the thing of like a picture tells 1,000 words. If that makes any sense, I don't know if it does.
Yeah, no, that it totally does. Like you can trust the artist to like convey what exactly you're trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have, and you don't have to get like too in depth, but at the same time, like because it's a visual medium, you can basically put down like whatever you want.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what could potentially take 2 or 3 paragraphs in just pure writing, you could probably squeeze in a panel, and then it's so much easier to, in theory, I mean, you still got to draw it, of course, but like pack detail into a visual medium versus strictly literature.
You should see some of Alan Moore's notes on Watchmen, like his script notes.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like a novel. It's
I
like a novel.
I did remember reading this one interview with Alan Moore talking about the production of Watchmen, or maybe it was Dave Gibbons. One of them tripped when they were delivering the script, and it took like 3 hours or something to put everything back in order because of how detailed it was everything was.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, as a writer, like I would love to eventually get to that point, but also I'm like, I think someone would hate me.
Yeah, no, I think our artist would try to kill you.
Yes. Hello, Diggity, Infamous, and Angel. Hey, Sonny. Nice for you to show up.
You.
How about you, Kohi? Like, what were some of the inspirations for you to like pick up art and just comics in general?
Other artists that I would other artists are basically who would inspire and motivate me to
Yeah.
make my own, because I thought their stuff was so cool, and so I was like, I want to do that. Like, yeah. But yeah, I used to like save so many photos that I was and like pages from other fan comics that I had gotten into, and I was like, oh man, these are so cool. And I was like, I should do my own, or like, you know, stuff like that. Originally, I wanted to be an animator, and until I started getting more into comics and finding out how difficult 3D animation is.
Oh yeah, no, I respect the heck
Which
out of people who are able to do that.
I know, it's like, oh, it looks so hard. And people tell me it's like, no, it's easy to animate. I'm like, no, it's not.
I guess like when you settle into things and you know how to like have your personal pipeline be super smooth, like the veneer of simplicity is there, versus probably someone like us who's like, okay, model this 3D object, and I'm sure we would all panic.
Yeah, I used to try and work in Blender and stuff. I just would sit there and be like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
Really?
And then I watch videos of other people doing it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no fun, no worries. I have heard Blender can be a lot, especially for like your first 3D modeling program. The one that I learned on when I was in school is Maya, and it's definitely not perfect, but the UI is laid out in a way that it just makes a lot more sense if you approach it with like your pre-existing logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing with Maya is if you decide to give it a whirl is save often, because it crashed on me one time.
It crashed.
It crashed, yeah, and I lost 3 hours of work, and I almost threw the computer out the window.
Oh.
That's
Yeah, I know what that feels like.
Uh-huh.
There's kind of a reason why I kind of just do it through Google Docs now. I once ran into a situation where I was writing in space battles, like a snippet.
Yeah.
And then the website crashed, and I lost like half of my work.
Oh.
I was like, so I decided, yep, I'm using Google Docs from now on.
I can't even imagine that. That makes me want to cry.
Oh yeah, no. I was lucky I was alone in my apartment. Anyways, I was able to scream. I knew if anyone came and asked, I would just say I stubbed my toe real bad.
Thinking man. The one that is impressive for me is the people that do 3D animation, but with 2D sensibilities, where there's a lot of stretching and like bounciness to what they're making. Like, that is insane to me.
But yeah, those are really impressive.
Yeah, like it's just so expressive and fluid.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the stuff that Studio Orange does with like their Trigun anime, and the stuff that they did with Land of the Lustrous, that kind of blew my mind. Like I was like, how the hell did they do that?
Puppet stuff is actually pretty cool too, when you are able to automate the skeleton a lot. I have a friend who works with like they call them puppets, not really puppets, but like things that are pre-built and they only have a certain range of movement, but like if you get someone who knows what they're doing and can keep track of what's going on with a skeleton, it's impressive. I'm surprised sometimes how it's not talked about more, how puppet animation is really cost effective, and like you're not skimping on quality or anything like that.
The stuff Gooseworks is doing with the Amazing Digital Circus and what they've been doing before that was really impressive to me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was referred to when I was talking about like people using 3D animation, but as if it were two-dimensional. That is insanity.
I know, like I found out that Worthy Kids, like all his stuff is like 3D. Even like the stuff that doesn't look like it, like the one that one video that kind of looked like Rankin Bass animation, but it was like a Japanese anime kind of. Like that was it. That wasn't with puppets. That was actually with a 3D animation.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, Sunny? Is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Oh, okay. So we got someone else joining us now. This is Somerset Banjo. He is another member of the writing team, and he helps. Well, what would you say? Because I always say like you help with story, but that seems a little too vague.
Well, I would say that for now my capacity is a story consultant. Eventually, I might be writing a script of my own at some point, but I do story consulting, and I also do some assistance work in proofreading and minor editing.
There you go. I guess, yeah,
Bro.
that does cover everything.
Well, I hope you don't mind me coming on today for this stream.
No, not at all. We were just kind of talking about whatever.
Okay.
I'm too quiet.
That's okay. That's okay.
No,
You're focused.
fine. You're fine.
Yes.
Anyway, it's very impressive coloring work you're doing right now.
Thank you. Although I am raging at myself for forgetting Sonic's neckerchief or whatever it's called.
Bandana.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. Until you mentioned it, I hadn't noticed either.
Yeah. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like I've been saying this a lot, but issue 1 is like really us figuring out how to do this, and I think it's actually important to show the blemishes a little within reason, of course. Like a project like Archie Sonic Online, of course, has a bit higher standards to live up to, just because they're trying to make it seem like the book never stopped. But with someone like us, I think it's important to show people like this is not impossible. And not only that, you don't really need to hit it out of the park your first go around. Like, it'd be one thing if like our current quality in our standards, I should say, our standards stay the same and we have a very like whatever kind of attitude towards it. That'd be one thing. But if you start out and you say, okay, so these are the things we can improve on, and you do, that matters just as much as coming out strong. Because I know when I was younger, something that really prevented me from pursuing these ambitious projects like this was the fear of like, oh, well, what if I don't get it right the first time and everyone thinks it sucks? Well, maybe people will think it sucks, but would you want those people around in the first place?
Yeah.
Or am I just kind of whistling Dixie here?
No, I kind of agree.
I think you're right.
I don't want to diminish what we're doing, but like we're not exactly like a professional crew.
Yeah.
We're trying to definitely make a good comic, but like stuff like this is kind of gonna slip through. Like,
Yeah.
especially like our first try. Like when all of us are doing this for free, we're writing for free, we're drawing for free, we're coloring for free, and like I really don't like the idea of having to like constantly say, "Oh, you drew this while we do it. I'm not your boss."
Well, yeah. Like, one thing that is a bit uncomfortable for me is when Snow refers to me as like the boss, or like, you got a boss. I'm like, I mean, I understand why you're saying that, but I don't like to think of myself as like a boss because, well, one, I don't really like the concept of just I dictate to you what you're going to be doing. I try to foster a very collaborative environment where we all feel like equals. But also like with the whole like thing of like a boss is like the promise of payment, and I'm like, I if I could, I definitely would pay everyone, because like some serious time and effort has gone into this thing, which is very appreciated. But I can't. I just can't.
Yeah, I can certainly sympathize. I've had similar issues with my own project too. Um, they in regards to working on the first issue, there is kind of a saying in writing that's kind of applicable to making the first issue of the comic, that one of the hardest things for a writer to do is to write the first chapter of a book and the last chapter of a book. And I think that is, you could apply the same kind of saying to making a comic too. One of the
Absolutely.
first one of the hardest ones is to make your first issue, and probably to make your last issue too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny you say that because I actually have an idea of how everything would end if we ever get to that point. I mean, I would love
Mm-hmm.
if it ever happens.
Yeah, I myself have a couple of ideas of how I'd like to in my own comics project too.
I always found like even if you have an idea of what the ending is going to be, it's going to morph and change as you go along because
Oh,
getting to
indeed.
there, yeah, you get a feel of like, actually the character would do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For example, to use as an example, Babylon 5 went through a lot of changes and permutations as the show progressed, to the point while in broad strokes, the intended ending was still the same, but a lot of the details of that ending changed quite a bit just because of how the show progressed and different ideas that J. Michael Straczynski got over the course of making the show. And of course, you compare, and of course, it worked very well. It's a very good series finale. And then, of course, you take a look at something like How I Met Your Mother, for example.
Oh,
They had an ending planned out from the beginning, and they did not change that ending at all by the time that they finally got to when they were going to end the show. And the show had changed so much that the ending that they had originally came up with when they started the show no longer worked.
it was so bad.
I'm kind of glad I never really got into sitcoms, except for It's Always Sunny.
And It's Always Sunny is like the anti-sitcom, though.
Yeah, but I mean, like I hate. Yeah, kind of. Like it just reminds you, like, why would you want to like stay with the same people at the same bar doing the same stuff over and over again, unless you were all kind of terrible?
Exactly. But that's why it's awesome.
Yeah. Like they never try to like excuse any of these people.
I've never watched Always Sunny, but I've always heard good things about it.
I love the. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it's great. Like, I wish I watched it more, but I've always enjoyed it when I do.
The Jersey Shore one is my personal favorite.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Some
No,
of the
but like
sitcoms. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's partly because I actually lived in Jersey,
Ah.
and
Some
so
of
I've
the
actually been
sitcoms.
on the Jersey Shore. Sorry.
Ah.
Oh, hey, Roach.
Some of the sitcoms I used to watch quite a bit was some of the like older ones from like the 90s. I used to watch quite a bit of Frasier, quite a bit of News Radio, some Seinfeld, and of course Simpsons and Futurama.
News radio is very underrated. I wish more people talked about it.
Hmm.
I gotta be honest, my sitcom of choice was Friends. I'm a basic bit. Sorry, Kohi. I went so long and I broke the streak.
The only two things I know about Friends are one, that stupid theme song, and two, in Alan Moore Supreme, one of the villains kills the female lead. I forgot her name. Hold on one second. I think it was Rebecca.
It's been so long since I've watched any of the episodes. I wish I could tell you, but I can't with any sort of confidence.
Yeah. Well, he kills one of the female leads, and like it's the televillain, so he kills the character, but he doesn't kill the actor like on the screen. So it's like a very funny thing where like the next page, like apparently the actors on the news and they're kind of freaking out because they don't know what's going on, but for whatever reason, their character is now dead.
That sounds
It's
like
very meta.
That sounds like something that would have happened in Gary Shandling's first show. You know, where it kind of like broke the fourth wall all the time.
Yeah. Eric Andre's show was also like the only late night host I ever watched. But that was because it was. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
But that was only because like I found everyone else so unfunny.
Even Conan?
Conan wasn't really my speed.
Fair. Yeah. Mine was obviously going to be Conan. Like, I never really got the appeal of late night TV, especially in the age of the internet. Maybe like in the 90s when that wasn't so widespread, I guess. But yeah, Conan's my late night guy. I cannot for the life of me understand why anyone watched Jay Leno.
Andre and Space Ghost are the two late night hosts I would trust.
Okay, so that's my problem is I was lame and I was like a good boy when as a kid, and I thought Adult Swim was the devil.
It's amazing like what they could do with like basically $1 worth of budget.
Yes.
Like
So,
there's a whole
out of
show.
curiosity, how was the design for your version of Sonic for Blue Streak decided?
You know, to be honest, Sonic's design was really decided before even I showed up. Teo just he gave himself the challenge, as I understood it, to add more to Sonic's design while still kind of staying within the rules that had been established by Sega. And this is really what he came up with. And actually, it wasn't a little while ago we decided, like, hey, let's maybe see if we can go in a different direction. And everything we tried afterwards was just like, no, it's too much. Like, what you settled on the first time is like the perfect blend of what has been done with Sonic, with like modern and classic, and like the 2010 design and the adventure era and all that, and also like just a few of his own sensibilities, like the shades and the bandana and everything else.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Sonic Boom design, but actually a lot more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, that was one thing I actually liked about Boom, was like Sonic looked more lean and muscular without like being round or being a meathead like Knuckles wound up looking like.
Yeah. I guess you could say this is almost like what Sonic Boom's Sonic would look like if it was made by Sega of Japan.
Maybe. I think that Teo has really carved out his own niche. Like when it comes to the character redesigns, he's done an excellent job on everyone so far.
So is if I recall correctly, is Teo basically the lead character designer when coming up with designs for all the characters?
Yeah, he is. He's designed everyone we have so far, but there have been a few characters where we're coming back to them and it's like, okay, this is a good design, but it doesn't feel like the character it's supposed to represent. So we're, taking some of them back to the drawing board. But Teo isn't the only designer on the team. Like, really anyone in the art department, or the art team, sorry, who wants to take a crack at designing a character can take a stab at it. It's just Teo has final say on what gets okayed and what doesn't.
Okay. Sounds pretty fair.
Yeah, yeah. I
Huh.
mean, it's all about like what people want to do, pretty much.
I was
Yeah,
also
since
always
I'm more on the writer side of things, I was a bit unfamiliar with how things were going on the art side.
Honestly, just for the most part, people have been worried about getting issue 1 done and their pages out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
and the um, the idea I have once issue 1 is done. By the way, in case you guys are wondering when issue 1 might be done, we are looking at a July launch, potentially. No promises, just because we don't want to put too much stress on our art people. We're what was I saying? Oh yeah, once issue 1's out the door, we're gonna have a big post-mortem and take a look at everything and how it broke down for production,
Mm-hmm.
and how that affected the workflow, and also just give people like a month off, because I think it's only fair.
yeah.
I think I certainly agree. I think that is a very fair thing to do. To not only review how the process worked, how to improve it, but give everybody a break, because the last thing you want to happen on, especially in fan projects, is to work everybody so hard to the point that burnout happens.
Exactly, and that's like one thing I've been talking with Snow a lot, is the amount of work he's putting into it. Like, it's not that it's not appreciated or I think it's bad. It's just like, dude, I just don't want to like burn you out.
Yeah, and I've seen some of Snow's work so far on issue 1, and it's very impressive.
Oh
Very
yeah,
good work, and I think everybody's going to be quite impressed when they see it.
yeah. Anyway, Tim, you've been trying to say a few different things. What's up?
Nothing. I was just commenting.
Ah, okay.
Okay, yeah, I don't mean to suck the air away from the conversation.
Yeah,
I've been doing that plenty myself.
it happens, like in these roundtable type discussions, like just happens, you know.
Mhm. So, Tim, wanted to. You probably have already talked a little bit about this already before I came on, but I'm kind of curious to know a little bit more about your background, some of your writing, and yeah, basically your general involvement in the Sonic fan base, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, basically, long story short, I got back into Sonic thanks to COVID and running out of things to read. I was brought onto here by Comic Drake, so blame him for that. Um, I've been a long time fanfic writer. Like a lot of my early stuff was very cringe, as the kids say. Um, I said that. But like I started to get like more serious with it. Like it was mostly, but like this is like the first project where I feel like everything's coming together. Like I don't feel like beholden to following someone else's story, because I feel like a lot of my burnout with my previous fanfics was that I always felt trapped by canon. So making something that's more adjacent to canon with Rediscovered Frontiers, where like all this insanity is happening while Sonic and the others are stuck on the islands, it was very liberating, a very like liberating creative experience. And that's when kind of Diggity contacted me to get involved as like a editor. First as a writer, but I told him I was a bit too busy. But then as an editor, and yeah, I've been helping out since about like a bit of issue 2, but most of my stuff is in like issue 3. Um, I still doing Rediscovered Frontiers, but it's mostly now like production has slowed a bit now because I got a lot more stuff going on. And my main focus is just to make sure, everything like kind of makes sense to the characters, everything like what the artists are doing, like it's showing their stuff and also being taking advantage of the medium of comics. That's my main goal here as an editor. Like, I'm pretty sure you experienced this, but like when I say, why is a thought balloon here? The artist can make the expression sell this, sell this. That's
Yeah.
basically, yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. Well, it's always good to meet a fellow fanfic writer. I've probably been writing fan fiction since I was probably since I was in kindergarten, but
My God.
most of my stuff was either lost or I never published.
Oh no, I wiped my most cringy stuff off the face of the map.
I think
Uh,
mine's still out there somewhere. Unfortunately.
yeah, when I was a kid, I ever remember the Area 51 arcade.
Yeah, there was one of those in my local theater actually.
Yeah. Well, where I live, pretty much every local Pizza Hut had either Area 51 or its sequel, Area 51 Site 4. And so when I was like in kindergarten, I was like, I was really enraptured by that game. I had a lot of fun playing it. And so when I was like in kindergarten, I actually ended up writing some fan fiction about that game. And funny enough, the since I could barely read at the time, I didn't know what actually the aliens were called in that arcade game. I think they're actually called the Kron or something like that. When I was a kid, I actually and in my little fan fiction that I wrote of it, I actually referred to them as the Kriminovs. And that's actually where I've actually kept that name around, and I actually used it for other writing projects of mine because I always thought it was kind of a cool name.
Oh, really? Okay. That's interesting to know that's where that comes from.
So yes, it comes from basically my very first fan fiction. Is kind of a personal in joke or reference to myself.
Nice.
And when I got older, I of course got really deep into Archie Sonic, and so when I was in oh golly, late grade school, early high school, I tried my hand several times at writing different Sonic fan fictions, and none of those I ever finished. For various reasons. Some is because I just got distracted with other things, or um, I just kind of ran out of steam. But for example, one in particular, I tried to do basically a take on Superman's "Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow." Of course, mine was called "Whatever Happened to the Fastest Thing Alive," and
That's still a great
I
title.
was yes, and I still sometimes think about it because it was would be quite an ambitious project, and one that I was quite interested in writing, but at the time, my writing skills was not that good at all, and so I wrote about one page, and then that was it. But I had basically most of it already had outlined out on what was supposed to happen, and I recall I actually kind of told you in private a while back about some of the planned events, and I still think it would be a good story if I ever got around to writing it.
I think it would be, yeah, as like a fun one shot maybe, as like,
Hmm.
I don't know. It could work, but
Yeah.
it would definitely be more at home in like the early Flynn days. You know what I mean? When they were still
Well,
coming.
yeah. Well, that of course. that was, of course, when I was writing it was in the
That's-
early Flynn
that's-
days. I mean,
that's a-
I wrote this fan fiction like back in like 2007. So,
It's a good point.
Wow.
um, and of course, the other big project, fan fiction project I tried to work on at the time was basically a rewrite of pretty much everything Archie Sonic from like the original miniseries, all the way up to like I don't know, issue 50 or something, because at the time I was like really burned on the actual comic and the direction it was going. Keep in mind this was like around the 150s and 160s, and so I, of course, at this point I had amassed a collection of older issues, and so I kind of took it upon myself as like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the early weird slapstick issues with more with the tone of the later Sonic comics, you know, with a more serious tone and stuff. And I also, this was around the time when Sonic Shorts was being worked on, and I had it in my head. Of course, I was like 12 at the time. That what I'm going to do, I'm going to write out this whole portfolio, and I'm going to go meet the Sonic Shorts team, and I'm going to tell them, let's work together to make like a Sonic animated series based off of Archie Sonic. Of course, you know, in hindsight, they probably would have laughed me out of the forums, but you know, I was not without ambition even back then, and I wrote, golly, probably about 30 pages of outline or whatever. Probably would have kept on working on it, except my grandmother died, and basically I lost a lot of my enthusiasm to write for a while.
It's understandable.
Mm-hmm. But I actually still have that one saved in both the original handwritten notes, and then I eventually copied it over and saved it into a document that I still have on my hard drive to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, and so after that, I got probably jump forward like 4 or 5 years later. In terms of fan fiction, I fell in with the MLP crowd, and I ended up trying to write some MLP fan fiction for a while. Wrote a lot of stuff. That's basically where I came into my own in terms of writing. I had a really good editor, proofreader at the time that basically taught me everything I know about writing, and got very far on a couple of My Little Pony fanfics I was working on, but I never finished them and I never published them. But it was kind of, I had this idea of basically combining Silent Hill with My Little Pony, but turned out somebody else did that. So
Yeah, that's the thing with fan fiction. You eventually find out that someone was just as crazy as you.
yeah, of course, I was not only combining Silent Hill with My Little Pony, but I was also taking like I was also using like the Rainbow Factory fan fiction, if you ever heard of that one, as basically the backdrop for the whole story.
Yeah, no, I
But
can't say I have heard about that. I'm into Sonic, but I'm not like into that.
no, that's perfectly fine. The that particular fandom is an interesting place, highly creative, but it's very interesting, and they've kind of burned themselves out at this point. I mean, uh, but that's neither here nor there. This is of course a Sonic stream. Of course, after that kind of period of time, I kind of wandered away from the Brony fandom, and I went back into stuff I was more familiar with. You know, things like Sonic. I tried really hard to get into ASO. I wrote a couple of scripts, sent one in when they were doing their writing writer contest, and well, they said that what I wrote was very good. They strongly considered me for the part, but because I didn't follow a specific rule, they instantly disqualified me. which it's their sandbox, but wasn't really happy about that. But that's kind of some of my backstory when it comes to writing.
I wish I had entered that contest. Ugh.
Probably would have done pretty well.
Maybe. I was not as confident, if I'm remembering the time frame right. But who
I
knows?
wasn't even into Sonic.
Yeah.
One of the things is funny is several of the other contestants that also entered into that contest, I actually helped proofread and edit some of theirs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Including the one that actually won.
Mm.
Well, I mean, we all know that.
Sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So it goes, just like Slaughterhouse 5 says.
Anyway, I'm still quite proud of the script that I wrote for that contest, and pretty much anybody who has ever read that particular script is like, "Wow, I can't believe they didn't have you join the writing team." And I'm usually like, "I know, right?"
I mean, anything.
Go ahead.
Anything can happen. Like, just because, like, they said no that time, does it? Like, no is not forever.
No, of course not. And they kind of made it kind of clear as such. However, I've yet to ever do another writing contest, and I don't know why.
It might just be because, that, like, they already, like, full of writers and too many cooks in the kitchen and all that.
That's my guess. Like, that's why, I mean, one of our writers, Axel, or VG Jedi, as he is known on Twitter, he was coming to me and he said that one of his friends was interested in writing for the book, and I said, well, I'm honored. Like, it's very flattering that he thinks it's cool, but like, between myself, you guys, and the two other writers we have, I'm like, yeah, we got a good thing going on right now. We shouldn't mess with it too much unless we absolutely have to.
Like, I'm not even a writer, but I find myself, like, getting more involved with, like, planning and stuff like that than I probably should.
I mean, if you're worried that you're overstepping, dude, I would say put that out of your mind. Like, I seriously encourage everyone on the team, if they have an idea for either a storyline or like a cool moment in the story, or even just like a character, speak up. Like, I'm not about like, you only draw, you only color because that's what you said you wanted to do. Like, in my mind, the main purpose of this thing is not necessarily to make a cool Sonic comic book. I mean, that's a nice after effect. Really, what its main purpose is to like help us get to know people and like network, and also like gain experience on certain things that you probably wouldn't have the chance to do on your own. Like, for me, it's like, I probably wouldn't be writing comic book scripts if it weren't for this project, or brushing up on my project management skills or anything like that, which has been a huge help.
Yeah, well, briefly touch back on that writing contest. When I entered that contest, I had never written a comic script before, and I found that not only did I do a pretty good job in writing a comic script, I actually kind of like writing comic scripts more than writing in the usual traditional writing format for fan fiction.
It's funny you say that, because before you hopped on, Sonny, me and Tim were talking about how, like, you're able to squeeze a lot more literature in a way into a visual medium in like half the time, and sometimes like even less time.
Yeah, and I've always had kind of more of a visual mind, but I have never had the art skills to back it up. And so I kind of feel like um, writing in a comic script format kind of works better with how I kind of think in my head when I come up with stories, because it plays more into the visual side of my creative thinking.
Mhm.
For
So
me, I find myself like struggling with how to like word stuff to put the visual in your head. Like sometimes I just don't have the words of what I'm trying to like express.
I know exactly what you mean. I have the same problem.
oh yeah, it's like I know exactly what it is in my head, but then it's like, dang, I'm gonna have to break out the dictionary to find the right word to even describe it.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of like is where you gotta like trust the artist to do stuff for you with a comic medium. Like if they will probably have the same idea of what you're going for. So you gotta like tell them what you kind of have in mind and trust that they'll like be able to show it.
Yeah, and there's also
Oh, of
something.
course. No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say there's also something to be said about like um, trusting the artist, like you're saying, Tim, but also not getting so attached to something as you see it in your mind. Because I know when I was younger and first starting out as a writer, like I fell into that trap a lot.
Yeah,
When you're making a comic, it is definitely a collaborative process. There has to be a lot of trust on both sides and compromise.
Oh yeah, like even in issue 1, there's been a few times where um, either a penciler or one of our inkers has come to me and be like, "Listen, man, I know what you're going for, but from my perspective, we can make this work much more smoothly and with less page real estate being eaten up." And I'm like, absolutely. Like, I trust your instincts. Do it.
yeah, that's what I kind. That's you always should get a second opinion, especially if like you're doing a collaborative project between writer and artist.
Yes. But yeah, Tim, if you're worried about like encroaching more than you are and like offering story stuff, like don't at all. Like even like originally when I approached you, it was with the intent of like working on story stuff with you.
Yeah, I mean, even I myself have offered several different story ideas, even just through consulting and looking through the already decided material.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, you can't be too attached to an idea. Like sometimes I run into that whole thing where I have an idea, but it runs counter to the Bible. And I'm like, oh, okay, whoops.
And there's also like starting out with an idea and getting comfortable with the idea that like the thing you bring up first, it's more like you won't get exactly what you brought, but you'll get a version of it. And at least in my experience, what you wind up uh, getting is often better because you bounce it around people and you get their takes and you figure out like, okay, if we go in this direction, that could lead to this, which leads to that, which leads to this, as opposed to like maybe
Hmm.
when you first like come up with an idea, you can only see it in like the short term, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I think if there's been several times in just your and my meetings about some of the upcoming plot that has come about where in our discussions we came up with something even better than what was the original concept, or
Absolutely.
at least framed in a lot better way.
Hmm. Yeah, and I do have to give some credit to a former member of our team, there is definitely some decisions I was making early on that when he um, when he had like his POV applied to them, it made it better. Like especially with how do I talk about this without spoiling things? Let's just say like I learned it's better to probably slow down on the plot for this than trying to get all the cool stuff on the page as fast as I can. Like you gotta let things marinate.
Yes. Yeah, I've always have heard that that's always been kind of a mistake, especially among fan fiction writers, is trying to do too much as soon as possible. Of course, that's everybody's approach and pacing is different, but I've always kind of seen that preached by more experienced fan fiction writers of, don't rush things, don't try to pile everything at the front of your story. Try to space it out, make it better paced. So that way everything kind of has a rise and a fall to it.
Oh yeah, that's just the thing though. Like pacing is easily the aspect of storytelling that is so like nebulous, because like one sort of story would probably benefit from a nice really slow pace, like a lot of horror movies, right? But then you get something like Evil Dead, where it's like it's just rapid fire back to back to back to back, and that's what makes the movie amazing.
Yes.
You always gotta like, yeah, pacing's a bit nebulous, but when you're able to find that balance, it comes together really well.
Yeah, like once you like hit the sweet spot and you know how a story is supposed to flow, like that's when it comes together. But it's that kind of like waiting period, at least in my experience, because I know.
But yeah, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just getting ready to say, yeah, I mean, trying to find the proper pacing for things has been kind of a bit of a journey in my own projects too.
Writing, yeah, that's the funny thing about writing and being a writer. Like, writing itself is terrible, but having a finished story is amazing.
So, what's probably the one thing that you are most excited for about issue 1?
The thing I'm most excited for is I'm looking forward to seeing the reaction people have to our take on these characters, because we were talking about this before. Like, we are definitely doing new and different things with these characters, but we're trying very hard to stay true to them. So it's like we are trying to keep Sonic feeling like Sonic while still, taking him in new and interesting directions. And I mean, like, here right now, like in the center of the screen, you see Sally like uppercutting this giant robot. Like, slight spoiler, like we are making Sally a lot more action orientated than she was in the pre-reboot, and even in the reboot. Like, she gets into scraps a lot more. She's a much more capable fighter, but she's still like the tactical leader and the brains of the freedom fighters.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's definitely a case of similar yet different for a lot of these characters, and I think it's going to definitely give the comic its own unique identity, to where it's like, it's like if you've read like pre-reboot Archie or post-reboot Archie, this is in some ways kind of almost like a blending of the two, along with some original stuff put on top of it.
Well, the one thing I've been talking with a lot of the art people with, more so than the writers, which should probably remedy that, like taking a lot of inspiration from manga and figuring out how to tell this story, which is, I think, mostly character driven, but in like an action adventure lens. Like the problem is that like we want to have these character moments, but character moments typically happen driven through dialogue, right? Like people talk about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and how it affects them, etc., etc. Okay, how do you do that when instead of talking, it's punching and destroying robots?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the Dragon Ball influence coming in, because like people love to say that Dragon Ball is all just fighting, which it sort of is, but it's not just that. It's that thing again of like going back to Full Metal Alchemist, trying to convey its themes not through talking, but with Full Metal Alchemist it's like, what does alchemy mean? And with Dragon Ball it's like, okay, what does training mean?
And of course, you'd also kind of have to look at which particular era of Dragon Ball you're even looking at, because Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Super, yeah, they're all they're definitely all action oriented, but how they approach that action, how they approach the character moments and stuff is all different from each other, even if it's in subtle ways. For example, original Dragon Ball definitely has more of a humor bent to it.
Yeah.
And more of an adventure aspect to it. And then, of course, looking at Dragon Ball Z, for example, it's a lot more action-oriented with a lot more focus on, like, 1v1, high-stake fights.
Yeah, I would say, like, with this one, the era I pull a lot from when I'm, like, figuring out where the story is going and things like that is definitely Z, because it has that focus on action, but also, like, the focus on action as like a way to demonstrate character growth and the gaining of not just physical strength but like emotional strength and mental strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of get that.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of talking, Kohi. How are you doing? Good? You're just like, I'm here for the ride.
Yes. I am currently working on the shading, although I'm not sure if this color is looking very good on everything.
I am able to see the difference, so if that it helps at all. The shading looks great, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing a very good job there. Like
Thanks.
it's all coming together.
Thank you.
To respond to one of the comments in the comment section, I definitely agree, Miravox. There is an overlap between action and horror. A good example of that, for example, is the second Alien film, Aliens.
Oh.
It is both a horror film and an action film.
I love that movie so much.
The Thing is basically my Bible when it comes to horror.
Yes. Oh.
For example, I was introduced to the Alien franchise with Alien 3, but
sorry.
Yeah, sorry, man.
It's okay. Alien 3 has a very good visual style to it. That's probably the best part of the film, is its visuals and soundtrack.
Yes, absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah. But Aliens definitely always had the edge for me personally, because, well, first of all, it's a better film, but it had a really good balance of action and horror, and, well, I always found that the world building in Aliens was really good, and I always kind of felt like, golly, I guess it's Disney that owns the property now.
I know.
Uh,
Yeah, I can't believe that. I watched
but
Aliens on
I always
Disney
kind of
Plus.
felt.
Sorry, go ahead,
But I
Sonny.
always kind of felt. Yeah, I always kind of felt like that. There was enough potential material there that you could have, especially in this day and age. I think you could really do kind of a cinematic universe on aliens. They kind of sort of have with Predator and stuff, but I always kind of felt like that. Why not you just do a spin-off movie with the Colonial Marines? Don't have any xenomorphs in it. But you could have like some other kind of space monster that's out there, or maybe have the Colonial Marines go up against, I don't know, space terrorists or something. Just kind of felt like that. There was enough groundwork put down, especially with the second film, Aliens, that you could definitely kind of draw upon if you ever wanted to kind of do an expanded universe.
I know what you're saying, and part of me agrees because, we've had games set in the Alien universe, some good and some bad. But I think about like what I found scary about the xenomorph, and part of it was definitely that unknown factor of like, okay, so like, why is it doing what it's doing? What drives it? And like just not knowing all these things that made it scarier. Like it was something you couldn't reason with. It had that like almost cosmic horror um, element to it, whereas like this is something that cannot be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with or anything like that. Like it's going to do whatever it wants to do, and
Well, that's what made the original film so good,
yeah, for
because
sure.
it was all these because it was all these space truckers not knowing what to do with the unknown entity that's hitched a ride on their ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ridley Scott
uh,
kind of ruined it by explaining everything.
Yes. Ugh. That was so disappointing in Prometheus. Have you ever read like the script, the original script that inspired Prometheus?
No, but I
no,
do know that it cribbed a few notes from William Gibson's Alien 3.
Yes, it did. And oh man, reading that and knowing like Prometheus is not a bad movie by any means. It's just a bad alien movie. But like knowing that like that's what it became is a little heartbreaking.
Yeah. And then Alien Covenant came out and
um,
just jumped the shark.
Yeah. I am excited for Romulus
now
though.
one of the
Like,
things
oh,
one of the things that not too many people know about, but one of the unused scripts for Alien 3 eventually got turned into the movie Pitch Black.
wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm a huge Alien fan.
Oh,
Yeah, basically, Pitch Black originally started off as one of the unused scripts for Alien 3, and of course that sparked a whole new franchise with the Riddick series.
Okay, can you
it makes
imagine?
sense.
Can you imagine Vin Diesel going up against a xenomorph?
Yeah. I
Or,
would.
well, at least in this script, it would have been like Vin Diesel's Riddick character teaming up with Sigourney Weaver's Ripley character against a xenomorph.
I would actually. I think I would pay to see that movie. Actually.
Also, listening to the audiobook version of William Gibson's Alien 3 and the comic, I would have loved that version. Because at least Newt and the army guy go out like in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, that was the thing that killed Alien 3 for me right off the hop. It's like, okay, so
They're
Alien
dead.
Aliens just it's immediately nullified. Like I hate it when things do that.
Mm-hmm.
One and there's just one and two, and there's a reason why we don't talk about the others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I know at one point, another idea that they had planned for Alien 3 was actually do two movies. One of the ideas that they had was one movie would be focused on Ripley on the prison planet, and then there'd be another movie that would be focused on Newt and I guess it was Hicks.
Yeah, it was Hicks.
Because yeah, one of the ideas was maybe the escape pod uh, or that section of the ship got separated somehow, and so one ended up on one planet and one ended up on a different planet. But for whatever reason, they didn't go with that idea.
I think they. I'm gonna explain exactly why they didn't go with that idea, because they realized it was stupid to split the story, and also like people would only go to see the Ripley movie because, like, I love Hicks and I love Newt, but I watch Alien for Ripley. Like it's about her.
Still, it's kind of interesting to think about in hindsight, especially in a time when every series now is a cinematic universe. I think a lot more people would have been a lot more accepting of that kind of idea if it had been pitched now than it would have been back then.
Maybe.
I just want to know what coke they were snorting when they thought it was a good idea to kill the kid character.
From what I know of...
When you're...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
From what I know, like, there was just studio interference all over that movie, and the actress Carrie Hahn, who played Newt, was adamant that, like, no, like, I liked working with James Cameron, but I don't want to be an actress. So they said, well, if this takes place right afterwards, the kid can't look different than how she went in, so we just got to kill her.
I mean, I guess it was either that or just either have her be missing or just, I don't know, maybe the crash just messed up her face so much that she just happens to look like a completely different actress now.
That's...
I think that was the plan with the Thing sequel, where it's like they would explain that Kurt Russell looks totally different because his face got all jacked up from frostbite.
I know when Alan Dean Foster did the novelization for Alien 3, I think he fought pretty hard to try to make it instead that Newt is in a coma for the whole story and not actually dead. But I can't remember if that actually finally made it into the published version of the novel, or if it finally got, like, at the last minute reverted back to how it is in the film. I would have to read the novelization of it.
Honestly, like, whether or not she's dead or in a coma for the movie or the book, like, it's functionally the same thing. She's not in the story. It's just that with, she's in a coma, it's the attempt to be like, no, all you people who love Newt, she's not dead. She's just in a coma. That's totally different. No, it's not.
But yeah, I mean to turn this into an Alien stream, but yeah, Alien 3 was basically my introduction to the franchise. I actually read the comic book adaptation of it first, before I actually saw the film. The comic adaptation is pretty interesting because it's basically kind of like a cross between the assembly cut and the theatrical version, with including some additional material that's in neither one.
Oh, that's interesting. I like when things do that.
Yeah, so it's almost like a third separate cut of the film, but in comic form.
Nice. Speaking of William Gibson, I got Neuromancer sitting on my coffee table right now. Excited to read it. I heard that there's people are trying to make Neuromancer into a movie finally.
It's going to be very interesting because, like, a lot of this, Neuromancer kind of started everything in terms of cyberpunk.
Right.
So like, it's going to be interesting how they're going to handle that, because all the stuff that was new and radical in Neuromancer is now old hat in terms of cyberpunk.
Yeah, like
including.
Well, and also not only that, but Johnny Pneumatic came out in the 90s, and that was kind of like a Neuromancer prequel, wasn't it?
Still need to get around to seeing that. Especially when they try to, like, make the Mario movie into basically that. Yeah. But
I'm really glad that we actually got a faithful Mario movie.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was cool, but you know.
It was for kids. For
Then
sure.
again, then again, I shouldn't have expected much in terms of story from, the creator who doesn't really believe in story.
Yeah.
At least he's not as bad as like Doom's co-creator.
John Carmack. Yeah, he's a piece of work.
Yeah.
I am.
It takes real cojones to say that kind of thing in front of the guy who was supposed to be writing your story.
Yeah. Yeah. On that note, I'm a lot more optimistic about the Zelda live action movie than I was when it first got announced after watching the new Planet of the Apes, and also like reading interviews with the guy they have directing it, because he sounds like a fan.
Yeah, like
Any idea of which Zelda they're going to be doing? Because I would think that trying to do an adaptation of Zelda would be really hard because Zelda almost from game to game is radically different in tone and style and especially story. So it's like, if you're going to tell a Zelda story, are you going to try to do Ocarina, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, the original NES game? I would almost feel like that you would almost, if you're going to do an adaptation of Zelda, you would almost have to do like an original story.
I think
Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's how they're going to do about it.
Yeah, like they're going to try and borrow elements from every Zelda game, like probably some universal ones. Like, I think there's a chance we'll see like Navi, or at least some kind of like fairy companion. The Master Sword, of course. Maybe the three goddesses.
You're going to want to give Link someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Or someone to do most of the talking.
Yeah. I still wish it was animated, though, because you could try the How to Train Your Dragon approach to it, where, like, the action is more gritty, but the storyline is more, like, kind of lighthearted.
Oh, could you imagine what a Zelda movie would look like on the big screen with the Wind Waker art style?
Honestly, like sorry.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Cartoon Saloon would have been perfect for that.
Yes. And I mean, if I'm being honest, like I got that already with Moana.
No, but with Cartoon Saloon, I'd recommend you really check out like their Irish mythology trilogy and the Breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're very good. They got like a very unique style. The Secret of Kells will kind of blow your mind.
Well, I'll be sure to check it out. You're giving me so many things to recommend to check out. It's great.
I'm a bit weird. Like, hey, I got like a very attention deficit disorder, so.
Hey, don't worry. You're in good company.
No, but
Zelda with Ghibli.
Like,
yes.
I like the Sonic movies for what they are, but I also kind of wish that they were animated, but more like in a Spider-Verse vein. Like, I could almost see like the streak lines of Sonic's like running being kind of pixelated.
Yeah.
But the Sonic movies are what they are, and they're good at what they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of those things like set your expectations to where they realistically should be. Like, even the fact that when the initial Sonic design was showcased and everyone like called it out for being hot garbage, and then they said, okay, we have to change this or nobody's going to see the movie. I thought that was pretty awesome, not just for like the sake of making money, but it's like, okay, so there's at least some care there that they want to do a good job so that they'll get a return on their investment, as opposed to like, whatever, these nerds don't know what they're talking about. Like, had happened with every other video game movie up until that point.
Yeah. No, you could tell that was kind of their mentality when they first revealed it. They were expecting backlash, but they didn't expect a near universal one.
Oh yeah, like I remember for at least 2 weeks, that's all anybody was talking about. Still waiting for that Spider-Verse style Batman Beyond movie. Okay, so as much as we're talking about how awesome animated Sonic and Zelda would be, I want the live action Batman Beyond because one, the cartoon's already perfect.
Yeah,
And
you can't top that.
yeah, you can't top it. And two, like, after seeing like what people like Christopher Nolan and Matt Reeves can do with like the action of Batman, I want that as sci-fi. Like Blade Runner Batman sounds amazing.
Who would you have play Terry McGinnis?
I would have Dacre Montgomery. He's Billy in Stranger Things. Although
Alright.
it has been a few years since I've seen him in anything, so he might look a little too old for the part now, unless you wanted to age Terry up. But I think that would be a mistake, because Terry's like whole thing is that he is not Bruce.
Yeah, he's a punk teenager who kind of just stumbled into being Batman.
Exactly. And actually, like, if you were to make a Batman Beyond movie, I would want, like, I don't want to see Terry as like post-delinquent. I want him to be like still caught in that kind of mindset where he's still a bit of a street punk, and like him earning the mantle of Batman is him becoming the person we recognize from the cartoon, where he's actually good and he's trying to get redemption.
Yeah. Yeah, like those first
Yeah,
two
because
episodes.
in the cartoon, we never actually get to see, if I recall correctly, we never actually really get to see his delinquent phase.
No, you don't.
He's already kind of post-delinquent, even in the first episode. He's just kind of, already kind of getting out of that phase in his life, even though it definitely still influenced him as a character in that first episode. But
Yeah.
he's pretty quickly post-delinquent, even if it informs a lot of his character through the rest of the show.
Yeah. What were you gonna say there, Tim?
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say, like, you still kind of like get the idea that he is definitely someone that would like pick a fight with someone that was looking at Dana.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have never watched Gundam, even though it's like on my huge laundry list of watching one of these days. It's like, I want to see Gundam. I also want to see Robotech and, of course, the original Macross. But I just haven't really got too far into the mecha genre. The furthest I've ever gotten was watching Evangelion, which was certainly a trip in its own right, especially when you start with End of Evangelion as your first experience of it.
I never got into Gundam myself. I just don't get the appeal personally. I mean, no hate on anyone that likes that or anything like that. It's just not for me.
The Witch from Mercury is certainly the easiest someone could get into Gundam with.
Oh yeah?
Like it's like the easiest one you can get to Gundam with. And the appeal of Gundam is kind of just exploring some real world parallels through giant mecha, like child soldiers in Iron Blood Orphan, the military industrial complex through a ton of them, but even in Witch of Mercury, that kind of thing.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I have heard like Gundam when it first started was like very much kind of satirizing the whole thing of like a teenager gets access to this giant robot and acts like a superhero to save the day. That was really popular for 70s anime, and like put it in the frame of war. But I have also heard that as the years went on, like Gundam became the thing that it was lampooning.
yeah, you can kind of get that idea. I'm not super into Gundam, but like you can definitely get some of that satire where it's like if we had access to giant robots, that'd just be another tool for war, and war just sucks inherently. So
You
like
know, one thing.
put
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. So putting a kid into that giant robot, that's a child soldier right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one thing is kind of interesting that not too many people know about, but the Star Fox franchise took a lot of influence from Gundam. Uh, for example, in Star Fox 64, a lot of the Venom, Andross's forces, a lot of the bosses in Star Fox 64. If you take a look and kind of upres the little sprite of their talking head, you'll notice that several of the different bosses that you face in the game are actually wearing Xeon flight suits from Gundam.
Hmm.
What a specific reference, though. Like, this is what you have to do to understand what we're getting at.
I just think it's probably one of the artists that worked on Star Fox 64 was probably a fan of Gundam, and he just wanted to incorporate a nice little Easter egg to probably one of his favorite animes.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's kind of.
We were both just saying the same thing.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's kind of like how the Doctor Slump reference in the Sonic thing. Sonic Emblem.
This Dr. Slump, really? That went over my head.
Yeah, like you see it kind of in the intro for Doctor Slump, the anime, and then you see it like in the title screen of Sonic 1.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out because I had no idea.
Everyone like the people working on these things are nerds. Like it's not that stretched hard to believe. Like they fit in everything that they like in somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look at us.
Honestly, Starlight Alchemist, I've never watched Sword Art Online. I know a lot of people criticized or poke fun of it, but when I first heard about Sword Art Online, I was thinking, wasn't that the same thing as like Hack GU, and which came out like a decade earlier?
I think it was. It's just that Sword Art focused on like making the story believable. I'll also say this about Sword Art: like, first season was legitimately great. Second season, not bad. Everything after that, yeah, it was them stretching the concept way beyond the point it was meant to go.
There's also the thing where I find like a character that's just inherently good at anything and everything with no flaws is just kind of boring.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Kirito kind of just bored me as a character. And like the thing that I kept wondering is like it kind of like delved into like my eventual like distaste of the harem and isekai genre.
I know exactly what you're
Is
talking about.
yeah,
Yep.
is how the hell can these women actually like this milk toast thing?
Yeah.
Where whose defining character trait is he's nice.
Yeah. Like, nice is a quality. It's not a character trait.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you consider a season? For me, an anime season is okay. It's directly after you've finished the last antagonist of the previous arc until you beat the next antagonist of the current arc. That's a season to me.
For me, I just usually go with whatever the DVD says is a season.
That's also true.
Or whatever.
I was trying to figure out a way to say it without just saying that, but if you're going to put it out there, Sonny, I'm going to hop right on that train.
No need to make it complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, now if you're going to want to be a purist, you'll go with whatever the production order number is. But not every show is going to, publicly disclose what the production order number is.
Yeah.
For me, if I had to wait a couple months for something to be done, that's a season right there.
There you go.
I still think like Invincible shot itself in the foot with that stupid arbitrary break between episodes in season 2.
Yes, God, that was dumb. Although I will say this, the episode, the one before the break, felt more of a proper ending than the actual last episode of the season.
I strongly suspect that break was actually because all the animation wasn't done.
I could believe that. Like, the one thing that came to mind after I realized the last episode of the season was the last episode was that whole like joke between Mark and the comic creator that he liked. It was like, oh yeah, and sometimes to save on budget we do these things. Wow, that's amazing. It's like, okay, so this is to justify the length that this episode is.
I mean, the joke was kind of there in the comic too, but it wouldn't have scanned. Like where they make fun of like the comic, how they do repeating like beat panels, where they point out that's kind of lazy when you think about it, and then the artist just like stares at him for like 3 panels, and then it goes, "Not really," without anything changing between them besides the color. It was kind of poking fun at both how Invincible does things and how Brian Michael Bendis does his comics.
Now I'm thinking back to some of those Knuckles comics where Kim Penders had like a whole page with the same character and the same expression for like 6 panels.
Ugh.
Like,
I can't remember who the actual artist for that issue was. It wasn't actually Penders that drew it, but I would have to look it up again. But you probably know which page I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that kind of thing has to be like a deliberate choice, like for the writer, like for the artist and the artist. They have to both agree on it. I think Penders just thought it would be funny.
But it was a Penders thing.
Yeah. Though I felt like it could have like sold that joke in just 3 panels.
Well, the thing about Penders is he has a lot of interesting ideas. He just never knows how to execute them right.
Well, I mean, I say this all the time, but like having ideas doesn't make you a writer. It makes you vaguely creative. Like, ideas are a dime a dozen. Everyone has a cool sounding idea. It's being able to, like, if you can't execute on anything, then you're not a real writer or a creative.
Yeah, I kind of get that.
Of course, hearing from him from a recent interview he did with Low Art, it sounds like Archie was pretty much working him to the bone at is. So, where he was only getting like 3-4 hours of sleep on some days. So, probably definitely impacted how he was able to write at all.
Yeah, but with like most Penders stories, you always have to keep it with a grain of salt because he always loves like trying to make something not his fault, whatever, if it puts him in a bad light.
Yes.
So when you actually think about the length of his stories, you kind of get the idea that he was just kind of bad at time management.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there is a lot of pacing problems in the Knuckles books.
He was very bad at plotting, bad at time management. Like, I joked about this before, but you get the idea he did like Deus Ex, like Mogul or Locke, because he wrote himself into a corner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps.
He couldn't figure out a good way for Knuckles to win, so poof, Mogul's here. He steals the spotlight. He defeats Enerjack.
True, although there is actually a couple of panels peppered earlier into the arc to at least have a little bit of setup of it being Mogul, but it's such a small panel that it took me a long time to actually see the panel and actually realize, oh, that's actually supposed to be Mogul and a teaser for what the twist is at the end. Not that it justifies it, but it's just, it was...
Or,
You
or
could
like
probably
the
do a whole
entirety
stream
of
just dissecting his comics.
or the whole Elias thing. Like, it would have been fine if we had like a scene in an issue or two before of Sonic visiting him and giving him the download of what's happening. But then he suddenly appears last issue. Suddenly he wants to be king again and save his sister. And I'm like, where the hell did he come from? Why are you even here? Like, it's
sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I'm just saying, like, that kind of like
Personally,
fuels
I'm
my
not.
idea.
I was never exactly against him suddenly bringing Elias back because, well, for me at least, I never really liked how Carl wrote the Elias character, and so in writing him for one more time, actually, he actually kind of set Elias up in a direction I much preferred at the time.
I mean,
Than where Carl had him end up. Although, although it's really interesting how in Lowart's same interview, he basically gives all the credit of Elias's character to Carl and Justin Gabry, and pretty much said himself that all he basically came up with was the name.
good.
You kind of get that idea. It's like Elias was kind of just there as like a body to be like the king instead of like Sally. Like a very huge problem I have with Penders is like his claims of being a feminist, but a lot of his stories kind of like show he's anything but. Like a lot of all his female characters in his future story end up like housewives.
Yes.
So it was my problem with Toriyama, but like as well. But with Penders, it's even more pronounced because at least Toriyama doesn't really proclaim himself in feminist. You know?
Well, especially like a character like Chi-Chi, who, if memory serves, had made it pretty clear in her earlier appearances, like she wants to marry someone and settle down and not just fight all the time. Whereas someone like, Julie Sue, nothing about her screams like, yeah, I'm happy with just being at home, worrying about the kids while Knuckles goes and does his thing.
Yeah, like for me, it would have made sense for her to be hanging out with the Chaotix.
Exactly.
In my opinion, Julie Sue was barely a character in the Knuckles comics.
Oh yeah.
She didn't really start really having a real character until Carl started writing her for the short time he had the opportunity to. I really wish we could just peer into another reality where Carl was the writer that was kept on instead of Ken.
I think Ken was at Valiant at the time.
Maybe. I honestly can't remember myself.
In that case, I kind of get why he jumped ship. But in any case, like, I honestly, like, it feels like they only hired Penders again because he was the one actually looking for the job, and they didn't want to look for anyone else because no one was asking. Like, Penders can proclaim that, like, he only like joined back on the comic because of his kid being a fan. Like, that's another one of those cases where like you can tell he's changing the story so that he can look better. Because I could basically tell from his work history, Archie was the only place willing to hire him.
This looks amazing, Kohi.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. The only thing that was really left as a background so far, from what I can tell.
You know, one thing that is a little bit of a problem when trying to piece together what actually was going on at Archie Comics is the problem is not too many of the people that worked at Archie Comics has really sat down and really talked about a lot of what really went on production wise for a lot of those older issues. Penders is pretty much the only one that really divulges a lot of went on production wise and stuff in the pre-Flynn era, and so with some other stuff you just kind of either have to take him at his word or just ignore what he says.
Yeah.
I just wish that some other creators from that time would really kind of chime in and share some of the making of some of these different comics.
I think it partially has to do with no one really asking them. Because
Yeah.
remember, it took Loar just asking Carl Ballers before he said anything.
Yeah, I remember it came out that I think it was like a year or two for Carl to even know that the comic had been rebooted, because someone had asked him, it's like, so what do you think about like what happened to Mina and Ash? And he was like, well, what happened to Mina and Ash?
I do know that in the early 2000s, from what I pieced together, Carl used to be a lot more active in the Sonic fandom on forums and stuff, but from what I pieced together from like old blogs or whatever, he was met with quite a bit of hostility, and so he backed out from the Sonic fandom at the time. And of course, he was already kind of started making his way out of the comic anyway. But that's just kind of what I've pieced together.
That's what I've come to understand as well, which is unfortunate because in the few interviews I've read with the guy, he seems nice.
Yeah, he seems like a really nice guy, and I always had a very strong soft spot for the Carl Buller's run on the book, and I always kind of felt like his run on the Archie Sonic is kind of underrated and overlooked, because and I know this there's going to be quite a few people out there that would disagree with me, but I know a lot of people are like, ignore everything of Archie Sonic until 160, and I've always kind of felt like no, there's a lot of decent, good, or interesting stories happened in Archie Sonic long before Ian Flynn ever became a writer, and in fact, a lot of what Ian Flynn wrote is built off of what these earlier stories were.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of felt like that, that people should at least dip their toe into some of the earlier runs, especially Carl's run.
I think it's just a case of middle child syndrome. Like, everyone hates what Penders did. Everyone loves what Ian did. So Carl's just kind of like, I mean, I don't hate what he did, but I'm not a super fan of it, Like, it's the problem of like not inspiring those strong emotions.
And you can really tell he was just starting out as a writer.
Oh yeah, and he freely admits as such in interviews that working on Sonic was quite a bit of a learning experience for him, because he before that point he had only been basically kind of like a fill-in writer for different comics, and so this was like the first real big gig for him, and so he had to basically hit the ground running and learn as he worked. And he talked about like one of the biggest challenges he had was figuring out how to write a comic book with such a huge cast and juggle all the characters and while still telling a forward progressing story. And he's also on record on several occasions saying that if he could do it over again, he would have written Archie Sonic, or Sonic in general, quite a bit differently if he could go back and write it again.
It makes sense. You could tell, like there was that whole Benny Lee thing, which may or may not be him, where like he lost confidence in himself, or like he just wanted to be goofy, like full stop,
Yeah.
and not.
Well, yeah, that was of course during the time when he was facing a lot of hostility online for his writing direction, and that might have been why he created like a pen name for himself. Of course, he wasn't the only one at the office that was making a pen name for himself. It is very likely, of course, that Rami Chakan was Justin Gabry.
Yes, the father of Tommy Turtle, I believe.
Well, of course, the greatest crime against Tommy was the fact that they erased Tommy's hat.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, it's a bit of an in-joke. John Gray, he one of the few issues he drew during Ken Pender's brief post-Carl run was, of course, Sonic Angels, which I feel like is probably one of the worst Sonic comics I've read. But he drew part of the art for that issue, and in his pencils he gave Tommy Turtle a little derby hat, which actually looked kind of cute and silly. And for some reason, either the inker or the artist or the editor, somebody basically went through every panel and erased Tommy's hat.
All right.
And so one time John Gray posted one of the panels of his original pencils and was like, look guys, I tried to save Tommy as a character. Look, I gave him this little hat.
Yeah.
So
I kind of memory
I always thought it was...
What were you saying, Tim?
I always thought it was... What's that?
So, I was just gonna say I kind of memoried the entirety of the Ken Pender's run to Electric Boogaloo.
I've done everything I can to forget it.
Well, for me, basically, I lived through the entirety of the Carl and Ken run, so that's basically my entire childhood of Archie Sonic was the Carl and Ken run, so I can't really forget it.
I am so sorry.
Yeah. It was like I remember because I had only ever read the Ian stuff, and then when I decided, it's like, okay, I'll get some of the old comics to like get the history and everything like that, and I got like the 2003 one, which like contained 134, and I'm like, what the hell? This feels so different. Like it's a totally different book. Nobody sounds right. Nobody's acting right. It's all just wrong.
Oh well, 134, was that the home 4-parter?
Yeah, that's the slap.
Yes, that was actually the second ever issue I bought.
Oof.
Archie Sonic. When I started like reading it consistently.
Oof.
I actually, honestly, since that was pretty much my introduction to Sally as a character, that never really bothered me. It was just kind of part of the course for me.
How unfortunate.
Introduction to Sally was the slap?
Yeah, pretty much. That was my introduction to Sally as a character.
Oh.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I never grew up with Sad AM or anything like that, so pretty much my only frame of reference of Princess Sally was the Archie incarnation.
I only watched Sad AM when I was like 14. Like, there was nothing else on.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of DVDs. I thought it was okay. Like, I wasn't super into it. Like I mentioned before, took me a while for me to get back into Sonic.
I actually
Oh well,
thought.
I got burned out on Sonic really hard because the the first Sonic the first time I ever experienced Sonic was a Dreamcast demo kiosk of Sonic Adventure. It was at a Sears in 1999, and that was the first time I had ever experienced Sonic. And then when I saw, then jump forward a few years when I saw it got released on the GameCube. I bought it and was able to play through the whole thing. So like, Sonic Adventure DX, was kind of my introduction to the series, and of course, around that time, I also had picked up some of the comics because, well, one of the covers of Archie Sonic was, of course, Perfect Chaos, and I remembered that from the intro cinematic of the Dreamcast demo. And so, one of the first ever comics I ever got was one of the issues that was an adaptation of Sonic Adventure. Um, and then later on, after that, the second ever issue I had gotten was the the really abysmal Wrath of Khan issue, though the one that also had a Sonic Shuffle tie-in. Um,
Uh, oh man,
and then
that beautiful page.
yeah, and uh, and then after that, it was a good few years later, because a lot of places in my hometown didn't really carry comics, so I had no way to regularly keep up or read Archie Sonic, and so like the very next issue I got after that was actually the Sonic Adventure 2 tie-in comic issue. And I really loved that one because Spaz did the art for that one, and the artwork in it is quite incredible. Um, and From there, after that, the next issue I picked up after that was the first part of Heart Held Hostage. Really loved the art of John Gray, not John Gray, Jay Axer in that one. And so I started becoming kind of a fan of Sonic as a comic book character in addition to the games. And then I finally found out there was a bookstore in my town that actually was carrying the Sonic comics, and so I started buying regular issues, and so it was the last part of Home, where Sonic goes up against Mecha, and and then from that point onward, I started reading the comic regularly. So after that, the second issue I started reading consistently was, of course, the Slap issue, and I at the same time I was like buying up a whole bunch of like the earlier issues, and I was reading it pretty religiously along with whenever the new issues would come out, and pretty much by the time by 2006 I had pretty much almost every issue from the very first issue of Archie Sonic all the way up to the current issue, and I had read like all of them multiple times.
Olé.
And and I also had gotten like most of the Knuckles issues too, and so I was pretty excited when Return to Angel Island came about, and was like picking up some of the different character and plot threads from the old Knuckles comics, uh, and but then after Return to Angel Island wrapped up, and of course that was around the time when Carl left, or was got rid of, depending on who you ask. Um, that's when the comic book started going downhill fast, and and of course, the games coming out at the time were kind of going downhill too. I like Sonic Heroes, but it wasn't as good as Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. And then of course I was actually like really hyped for the Shadow the Hedgehog game. I even actually had like the promo Shadow the Hedgehog merch. I actually have like a beanie hat with the logo from that game. And I actually still have it on my shelf. Uh, and then when that game came out, that was like one of the first big gaming disappointments I ever had, was that Shadow the Hedgehog game. Um, I was really disappointed with that game, and then of course the comics were just getting worse and worse. And
Yeah.
then I played Sonic Riders, and I didn't really like that game at the time. Cool aesthetics. I think I'd like it more if I played it now than I did back then. Um, and around 158, 159, after they had wrapped up the storyline with the Metal Sonic soldiers, I was pretty much completely burned out on Sonic as a franchise. And I actually bailed on the comic and pretty much anything Sonic around mid 2006, and I didn't pick up an issue again of Archie Sonic until,
Just before the reboot,
golly,
right?
it was like it was like the issue right before the Archie Mega Man crossover. It was like the issue just before that one, and of course the Archie Mega Man crossover, it's good. I think it's definitely a good blueprint on how to do a crossover right. But for somebody that was actually just trying to get back into Archie Sonic after being away from it for so long, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for at the time. And then when the reboot happened, that it pretty much killed a lot of my motivation to continue, because it's like, well, it's no longer what I've been following since my childhood. It's no longer a continuous story with these characters growing and progressing. It's a brand new canon now, and so I had dropped off of the book pretty much shortly after the reboot was announced.
Yeah. That's me too. Like, what did you think of the Mega Man crossover? Pretty much what Sunny said. Like, um, it's cool that something like that happened, because like the fact that Sonic and Mega Man were in a comic book together is kind of wild and probably wouldn't happen today, where intercompany crossovers like that just don't happen anymore. But I mean, like, the fact that it happened sort of out of necessity to like have a sort of clean bridge between the pre-boot and the reboot, that sours it for me, and I don't think it'll ever I don't think that'll ever be washed away. But
Now,
to
be fair, from what I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, but to be fair, I did a little bit of research on how the Archie Mega Man crossover came about. It basically had been in the work as far back as 1999. You see, Spaz was a huge fan of Mega Man Legends and Mega Man Legends 2, and he really, really wanted to do a comic based off of Mega Man Legends, and so he had been pushing pretty hard within Archie Comics to try to get the license to do Mega Man Legends as a comic book. And of course, that eventually got the companies to talk with Capcom, and of course, eventually, Capcom granted the Mega Man IP. Of course, it wasn't Mega Man Legends; it was just classic Mega Man. But I know that Spaz was pretty instrumental in laying a lot of the groundwork that made the crossover even possible in the first place.
Yeah, I know. Like, the crossover wasn't just a spontaneous thing for the sake of the reboot. Like, something like that, you can't just plan in a few months. It's it's one of those things about the book that's like, I understand things were completely out of the creator's hands legally, but that only goes so far to like soften the blow, as it were.
No, of course, it definitely was a victim of bad timing. The Archie Mega Man crossover, I think, is a great blueprint for how to do a crossover right. It gave equal time to both the Mega Man cast and the Archie Sonic cast. It just wasn't what I was looking for or wanting to read at the time, so I never finished the crossover.
Yeah, same with me.
For me,
Sorry, go
for
ahead.
me, since I don't. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, for me, since I never really had that big, huge of a connection with Sonic, and I kind of knew that the reboot stuff was coming when I rejoined the franchise, I was able to enjoy it. Like, honestly, it's a good crossover, but it still kind of baffles me that, for whatever reason, despite having both TMNT and the Sonic licenses at the same time, for whatever reason, they didn't do a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Sonic crossover.
Yeah.
And now they never will.
I know I kind of have a little bit of knowledge on why it probably didn't happen. Because there was quite a bit of infighting between Archie Comics and Mirage Studios by the mid '90s, and so neither Archie Comics or Mirage Studios was like on good terms with each other, and Archie Comics was also in kind of a hostile working relationship with the lead writer of the Archie TMNT book, to the point where they pretty much fired the main writer of the Archie TMNT book pretty much on the spot, and so Archie, around the time when they were picking up the Sonic IP, were trying to distance themselves away from the TMNT IP as it was.
All right, well,
So that's
still.
kind of why they never did a crossover, because the working relationship regarding the TMT IP had kind of turned toxic there at Archie. Even though it was one of Archie's best-selling books of the '90s, even all the way up until they fired the lead writer and dropped the IP.
Archie just seems to have like made the worst business decisions up until like the lawsuit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
And even now,
to be fair, the lead writer of the Archie TMNT book was taking the book into some pretty wild directions. Like, for example, they one of the stories late in the Archie TMNT run actually has the Ninja Turtles go back in time, meet Hitler, and basically talk him into committing suicide.
well, I mean, when you look at what's happening in Archie Sonic, that's not exactly huge.
Not a huge leap.
Yeah.
No. I mean, that's why I've told people, if you like Archie Sonic for all the weird stuff it does, you would definitely like the Archie TMNT book, because it pretty much follows almost the exact same path that Archie Sonic took just a decade earlier. You know, it starts off slapstick and silly, gets progressively more serious, and then it just gets plain dark and weird.
But no, it's wild that like they even had an Image crossover and Ken Pender squandered it. My God. And now like Sonic will never have another crossover ever.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't, it's... I would have a hard time figuring out how you would even do a good crossover with the Image comic characters anyway, given how radically different they are.
I mean,
But I can tell you that how they did it was not how you should do it.
I would just focus on the absurdity of it all. Like, just go totally gonzo with it and have fun. Like it's not going to matter to either of the properties in the long run. So just go for broke.
Yeah, like I honestly probably would have made it a joke that Spawn just keeps trying to dip out, but somehow like keeps getting involved, much to his frustration.
Yes, exactly. Oh, hey, Snow's here. Favorite story in Archie. Okay, that's easy for me. It's Enerjack Reborn, and then right behind it is Eggman Empire.
Mine is Eggman Empire, full stop. Like that was like my favorite. Like it's so short and condensed, and like it gets so much across within like 3-4 issues.
That's a really good point. I like Enerjack Reborn because it's the culmination of like really Ian's first day on the comic when he first introduced Scourge and brought back Finitivus, and like everything he had been building up to led to that. And then like he tried to replicate it with Mecha Sally, and you know, we all know how that turned out, of course, but like that first time was magic.
For me, like Eggman Empire works because it just operates on such a simple premise. Like, what if Eggman just kind of got bored of the game and decided to just win?
Yes, that's why it's my second favorite as well. Like, the thing I love about Ian and his run of the comics, like, he takes a look at like questions which fit the universe of Sonic, like what would happen if Eggman won, or what would happen if Sally got roboticized, and like is able to draw out so much material just from those basic questions. Or like Scourge in Brave New Moebius, like what happens if Scourge has a super form? Like it just feels so natural.
Plus, he really explored what does an evil Sonic really mean.
Yeah. And even then, like, I don't think it's accurate to call Scourge an evil Sonic. I think it's, like, more in line to call him the unsonic.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, he actually explores an evil Sonic would be the opposite of Sonic. Like, and all that entails. From, like, a weak motivation to just not having any friends to being an even more immature idea of what a cool guy is.
Mm-hmm.
For me, probably my favorite Archie Sonic stories is probably my top favorite is actually Sonic Adventure 2.5, which ran in issues 124 and 125. That's probably my top favorite. My second favorite would probably be the Home 4-parter, which ran in the 130s. And probably my third favorite would probably be Sonic 75.
Oh, so Eggman Empire, like us. Oh no, you didn't say 175, you said 75. My bad.
Yeah, Sonic 75, the one that actually introduced or brought back Robo Robotnik and had him become Eggman.
Okay.
That was such like a Grant Morrison move, like just pulling like something from the silly era and turning it into a darkly serious thing.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff I really like.
Yeah, those are probably my top 3 favorite Archie Sonic storylines. Of course, you know those are non-traditional answers. They of course predate the Ian run, but
that's fine.
But I find them to be really good in their own right.
I also really liked Knuckles' first Sonic Universe story. That felt like a really great follow-up to Enerjack Reborn.
Yeah. My favorite pre-Flynn era has to be like Return to Angel Island, because everything felt like a natural conclusion to like, or just it feels like a logical conclusion to everything Pender set up, even though like you can tell like he never really thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Like basically, What happens when the kiddos keep ignoring Eggman? He'll just eventually steamroll all over them. Who would be able to defend Angel Island if, like, the Dingoes took over? The Dark Legion, obviously. What would happen to the Guardians if they kept just bickering and not doing anything? They get taken out like punks off screen.
Yeah. Return to Angel Island, I think, gets slept on a lot, especially by fans like myself who primarily grew up with Ian. But it's got some good stuff. And also, like, John Gray's art is pretty awesome. It makes me sad that he showed up during the Carl and Penders era, because I think he would have been right at home with, like, if him and Tracy had, like, been trading things off, like Tracy does an issue, then Matt Herms does one, and then John Gray does one. Oh my god, that would have been awesome.
Well, that's kind of what John Gray had wanted to do with Jay Axer.
Right.
Around the time that he had joined on, one of the plans was at the time was that Jay Axer and John Gray would alternate issues. John Gray would draw an issue, and then Jay Axer would draw the following issue, and they would trade off with each other. But for whatever reason, that did not work out, and that partially might have been because of the changeover of editors from Justin Gabry to Mike, and also the fact that the inking department pretty much hated Jay Axer and pretty much would refuse to ink any issue that Axer did.
Wow.
That's kind of stupid.
I know. In fact, it got to the point where Jay Axer had to either ink his own issues, or he had to pay somebody outside of Archie Comics to ink it. And that was one reason why Archie Editorial ultimately decided to use Jay Axer less and less in the book, because it was just, well, in their mind, just easier for everyone instead of trying to fight the inking department to actually do their job for Axer's issues.
I wonder why. Like,
It's because, from what I did of research, it was because the inking department felt like that they were being overworked and underpaid, and given that Axer did a lot of pencils for, he did a lot of line work in every panel. The inking department basically felt like that was like the last straw, and so they pretty much, as protests, that we're not going to, ink this particular man's issues unless you, like, pay us overtime or something like that.
oh, that,
I mean, that makes sense. Axer was more into, like, superhero comics, wasn't he?
and he was super detailed too.
Mhm.
Oh my god, I'm
I
looking
know
at this page. Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know that Axer also was wanting to get into the writing side of Archie Sonic, and because he actually, not too many people know this, but he collaborated very closely with Carl Ballers to the point where he unofficially kind of co-wrote the Heart Held Hostage storyline, the one that kind of wrapped up Mina's storyline where Knack and the Weasel Gang kidnap Sally. He kind of sort of co-wrote that one along with Carl.
Huh.
And Axer was kind of wanting to get more into the writing side of Archie Sonic, and Carl was going to kind of help ease him into it a little bit. But of course, with Carl's departure, that didn't really come to fruition. Of course, some of Axer's planned ideas for the Archie comics was definitely going to take it into a much darker direction from what he disclosed. And he said probably in hindsight it was probably for the best that he didn't get a chance to write, because he would have wrote some pretty dark and edgy stuff at the time.
Nah.
One of the one of the things that
Uh,
Axer did say that. What's that?
I was just gonna say it couldn't have been worse than what Ken Penders did.
Well, that's
Well,
a
let me
given.
put this. Oh, let me put it this way: what Axer did kind of divulge in one of the story ideas that he had,
right, this one.
and
Yeah, you told me about this before. I remember it now.
yes, his planned idea was to do a story that would do the origin of Knack the Weasel, flesh him out as a character because Knack the Weasel was his favorite character, and it was going to be, I think, like a 2-part story. The first part was going to focus more on Knack as a character. The climax of the first part was going to have Knack the Weasel kill Saffron B, Charmy's fiance, or was they married by that point?
No, they were.
Oh, that was him?
What's that, Tim?
That was the him? I heard about that too.
Yeah, that was Jay Axer's idea, was to do a story with the first part. Jack the Weasel was going to steal Chaos Emerald from Knothole City. Saffron would have caught him in the act of doing so. Knack the Weasel would have used a garrote wire to basically strangulate Saffron B. Then the second part was going to be Charmy basically going after Knack the Weasel in revenge.
Well,
And
I mean, it would have been in line with. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think one thing was going to happen was at the climax of the second part, they would have gotten the Chaos Emerald back, but I think it was going to cost the life of another member of the Chaotix, and it would have driven a wedge between Charmy and the rest of the Chaotix for a time.
Well, I mean, it definitely wouldn't have been like out of what was happening with Charmy already.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was
Of
just
course,
the
this
trajectory of his life.
He's like, God damn it,
Yeah,
that
of course,
was
this all
Tuesday."
predated what. Of course, it all predated what ultimately Archie Comics would do to Charmy B later on. But yeah, it would have been just one more tragedy to be heaped on the poor character if they had done that.
Yeah, but let's be honest, Charmy's life was pretty much in dumpster by this point.
Yes.
Of course, sorry. I'm just kind of getting over being a bit sick, so that's why my voice is a little bit off. But now, one thing that is more interesting is after Carl Bollers was no longer writing for the book, John Gray actually tried to step into the shoes of becoming a writer. And his idea was to do a direct follow-up to Return to Angel Island. Of course, the only reason why we know anything about this is the fact that John Gray's script ended up leaking online a few years ago, and I was one of the lucky few to ever actually snag it.
Oh wow, I'd love to see that.
Okay.
Yes, it's yeah.
I just want to mention something. I can't give it away too many details to you guys, but if you're interested in seeing like the John Gray kind of direction, a good friend of mine is working on something slightly related to that. That's all I'll say on the stream, but if you're interested, let me know afterwards, and I'll put you in touch with him so that you can kind of keep tabs on it.
Oh, certainly, I would be interested because I'm actually in particular a fan of this particular script.
Yeah, I can't
So
remember.
anything in...
Sorry.
Yeah?
I was just going to say, I can't remember all the details, and even then, I mean, I can. He would kill me if I spoiled the whole thing here right now, but yeah, it's got a lot of that DNA. Let's put it that way.
Ooh, all right. Well, I might take you up on that offer.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Now, regarding this leaked script, basically the circumstances on how it actually got leaked was kind of interesting, and it was basically by a miracle I was at the right place at the right time to actually snag it. Um, a friend of mine, Paffel, um, he was like kind of picking John Gray's brain on a couple little details for a fan fiction project that he's been working on and off. That's in relation to that particular era of the Archie book. And so he just kind of wanted to ask a couple of questions of John Gray on where exactly uh, some of the characters, some of the ideas, or what they were envisioning with a particular character at the time um, was. And I can't remember exactly what the exchange was, but in that Twitter thread, it was either a former colorist or an inker at Archie Comics chimed in to that particular conversation, and was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that particular story. I remember helping you out on it." And come to think of it, I actually still have some of your other scripts that you had sent me to help you on, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to help you further on those other stories. And he just plopped this Google Drive, and it had 3 scripts in it, and 2 of which had actually ended up being published in the Archie book. But then the third one was titled Loose Continuity, and I was like, I don't recognize the title of this particular story. And I clicked on it, and it turned out to be this never before published script. And I quickly downloaded a copy of it, and I shared it with Paful. And then Paful responded back to John Gray, is like, "Hey, this other script that this person plopped in this G drive, what's the backstory on it?" And John Gray just like immediately stopped talking, and then like an hour later, that G drive was completely empty.
It's probably like an NDA thing, probably.
Probably, but I was like, but obviously, if it was an NDA thing, it didn't seem to stop that inker or colorist from posting it in the first place.
I guess, like,
I mean, plausible deniability on John's part, like, hey, I deleted it. I don't know how this guy got it.
Well, the thing was the G drive was not John Gray's. It was the inkers. So maybe there was like some sort of private conversation between the two, and then the inker just removed it from the G drive. I don't know.
Oh my god.
yeah, like I'm just thinking, like, like either it was John Gray going like, "Hey, I didn't give you permission to like release this. Can you please take it down?" Or, "Dude, I have a legal thing with Archie. We can't show this to anyone."
Well, what they say about Pandora's box is once it's open, you can't close it. And so I actually snagged the copy of it. And so far, nobody said anything to me about it.
All right.
Anyway, here's I just sent you the script of it to your DM.
Yeah, I see it.
It is yes, it is originally it was actually like a Word document, and I just copied it over into a GDoc file. And it's a 2-part story. And basically, from what I was able to piece together, there was actually like a note in the G drive that basically said that this story was originally meant to be published for, let me see which number it was again. I have it written down somewhere.
Just while you're doing that, Sonny, Tim, I know it's later for you than it is on my end. If you gotta dip out so you can head to bed, that's totally understandable.
Yeah, I kind of noticed the time too. Yeah, I'm probably gonna dip out soon. I need to go to sleep. I got work tomorrow.
Yeah, that's understandable, man. Thanks for hanging out for as long as you did.
Yeah, no problem at all. Just give me a second, because I'm definitely thinking about taking you up on that offer regarding the John Gray thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Here it was. Originally, this script was meant to be published for issue 145, and then there was a note that later on it got pushed back to be listed to be published for 147 and 148. And then I guess that's when they just ultimately scrapped it all together. But I think this would have been a better story than Good and Bad and the Unknown.
Oh, that's the one with the
Like
rat, right?
no, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one with the secret lab and the Isaac robot.
Oh, wait, 174.
But
Oh, I thought. Oh,
no, I said 147.
oh, okay. Oh, now I remember. It would have been better. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, this was 2 parts. It was all written by John Gray, and apparently it was going to be drawn by John Gray too. Obviously, since it was a colorist or inker that had this, it obviously must have had pencils done. Of course, the pencils have never leaked, but man, given some of these descriptions, I would love to have seen what the pencils for this looked like, because had this published, John Gray was definitely going to take the comic into an interesting direction. And he was certainly building up for something for 150. Probably something much better than what we actually ended up getting for 150. But yeah, it brings back Fentivis. It brings back Hunter, because actually Hunter apparently survived being tossed into the ocean. And also sets up some stuff regarding Adam. John Gray just like tries to tie up pretty much every plot thread in this 2-part script.
Just to quickly, sorry to interrupt, Sonny. I think Kohi's done.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dominate so much of the conversation.
You're good. I do one last thing that I realized is bothering me.
What's that?
These guys are supposed to be falling.
Oh, to answer the comment there, Starlight Alchemist, John Gray drawing the slap, that was pretty much
That was his debut.
entirely by happenstance. Originally, Dave Manick was going to be drawing that issue, and the John Gray was originally going to be drawing. It was going to be one of the earlier parts of Home, the one that Dave Manick ended up drawing, and for some reason, at the last minute, Justin Gabry switched assignments between the two of them, so that John Gray's introductory issue would be the one that had the slap in it, and Dave Manick would do the earlier part of Home. Had things originally gone to plan, John Gray would not have done that particular issue. But Justin Gabry had swapped the two because deadlines were coming close. Since John Gray was a brand new artist, he thought that he would be doing him a favor by having him do this particular later issue, so he would have more time to be able to draw it.
Yeah, that's a favor right there. That's a favor right there.
Yeah, real solid.
All right. It's actually I'm probably gonna have to dip out now. Like it's almost 12 at my time.
That's cool, man. I think we're just about wrapped up anyways.
All right then. Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry I had to go now.
No, it's okay. Thanks for sticking around.
All right.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and If and when you read the script, let me know what you think of it.
All right, sounds good. And Kohi, you did an excellent job here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, that is great colors.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right, sleep
Oh,
well.
my hands are dead though.
I bet. Oh man, this looks amazing.
Thank you. Yay.
Yeah, I mean, are you thinking that's it for you, Kohi? You kind of happy with this, or is there a few more things you want to tweak?
I think I don't know what you guys think about the glow, but
I like the glow on Eggman's eyes. It
Mhm.
looks really cool.
thank you. I think I'm probably good. I think I did it. Oh wait.
That's
I'm noticing things last second. No. Okay. There.
Actually, do you mind not adding the glow to that second one? Like
Yeah,
when
because he's dead.
exactly. Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Mm. Actually, with the second panel too, like when Sonic's about to run off, like you mind just undoing the glow there because that robot's also dead, right?
This one?
Oh wait, sorry. I'm watching the YouTube stream as opposed to the actual stream. Yeah, you got it. You
Wait,
got it absolutely. Yeah, you got her.
There we go. Cool.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'm very happy with all this.
Yippee.
Then we can I got Snow's backgrounds from him, so we can just figure those out and we'll be good to go.
Unbelievable.
Who's that?
Oh,
Hello?
I am confused.
I can hear someone somewhere, like it's very muffled. Like I think maybe Sunny had to go somewhere, and we can hear him away from the mic. But that's okay.
No, I'm right here.
Oh.
It didn't come from me.
Oh, well, all right then.
I think it's coming from Sonic Snow.
It is. Yeah, it is Snow.
it was COVID and I watched the TikTok talking about
Snow, we can hear you, dude.
Snow. You have audio on.
Okay. Anyway, I think we'll cut the stream there. Thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out with us tonight. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the conversations we were having.
No, I've never read Kill 6 Billion Demons. I've heard of the title, but I don't know anything about it. But I assume that it would take a while to kill 6 billion of them.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, it was a pleasure being on this stream. Thank you for letting me on, even though I was a bit late.
Yeah, no problem.
Yay.
All right, and who knows? Maybe we'll do one of these again sometime soon.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Sleep well.
Yes.